All right, listen, I don't want to hear any complaints about this clip art. I mean,
No,
this thumbnail.
I'm looking at the thumbnail right
look at
now.
the
You made Rob look really cool. Look what you did to his eyes and mouth. They really pop.
That is
You know, it's,
I
really
love
cool.
when people do things to my eyes and mouth.
yeah.
This is my version of Rob being a superhero as himself.
Okay.
His
I
alter
think it
ego
sums
is
up his-
himself.
I think it sums up his storytelling very well too. Like the picture.
All through the eyes and mouth.
Guys, can I cue the cat? Can I cue the cat?
Cue the cat.
Cue the cat.
Yeah.
All right.
Get in here.
Because I want to say what's up to Woody the Bluebird. Hello, Johnny Ripe Up the Stray Cat. Justin Credible VR. Andrew C. Chester Polyester. J. Cape. Game Cat says my favorite time of the week is here. Ours too, man. Welcome. Daniel Seri. David Moore. Saint Bukowski. Pro Fade TV. Also, aka Noah. What's up, Jason Ewing? Phase Colonel. Stay Warm 420. The Game Cat. Your Long Shadows. Hello, Joe Grover.
Send Joe Grover right over.
Believe the Spartan Game Cat H3. Dennis Frazier. Orseek. I am Orseek. Sylvia Helena. Andrew Bailey. Roy Schwartz. What's up, my dude? Nick Mulo. Professor Lilith. Gyson. Fist bump to you. Don't sub. Hello, Genetic Blasphemy. And, of course, Justin Credible VR. Did I already say that? I don't know. That's everybody. Hello,
You totally said that.
He does this every time.
He
bro.
does this
You can't
every
stop
week.
him. You can't stop him.
And the cat's almost here, man. He's so close. He's so close. I can almost smell him. Somebody give this cat a bath.
You guys still got time for shout outs. James
Your
Moore.
cat
hello.
is up. Okay.
He says taking a Gorn break.
Gorn break.
Beard of Power 666. I am on time for once. Hello. You do get a trophy for that. You're gonna have to take it up with Sony though. Ash VR. What up?
So, Brian, that's not the only cat that's arriving shortly, is it?
No, we got 2 more days till Tornado arrives.
Okay. Great. I can't wait to see that litter box episode with you and Jeremy taking a road trip out there to pick up your cat.
Yeah, man, we're getting all the details sorted out right now. This is PSVR Gamescast Live, where we film live every Thursday night at 6 p.m. Eastern. And then we bring it to you live, because that's what live means. We just do it, and it's here. It's like automatic. Live. My friends, to the right, Dave from Dave Station VR.
Hello?
AJ from The Underground, PSVR Underground.
Maybe Earth isn't home anymore.
And to the far right of the screen, we got Rob Yescombe, the most talented person on the show today by far. Dude, how's it going, man? Writer of Farpoint, writer of Invisible Hours. I was trying to make it
very
triumph.
generous to say. No. You're very generous to say. And,
You ended up just talking over him, is what you did.
there's no greater pleasure in life than having someone repeat your lines back to you with that kind of enthusiasm.
Oh, yeah, he got his aim controller ready and everything. I know he prepped that.
Well, I've got the box right here, man. The second I saw that is the only game where I watched the trailer and like the story just immediately watching that story trailer, which I highly recommend you go do. And I was like, I need this game, and I bought it immediately from those characters and everything.
And so
Nice.
just in case you guys missed this, Brian and Rob were talking at the same time.
Yeah.
Rob is here because he's the writer of Invisible Hours, Farpoint, and a ton of other flat screen games for which he's received some renown, such as like Rhyme, I believe he wrote Rhyme. So big league good writer in the room here. I don't know if that's a bad intro, but what's going on, Brian?
Welcome it. Thank you.
All right, this is a little strange, right? Because we were like, the first thing we were like, well, is like, how do we want to work this, right? And so I think just to get the ball rolling, we should do. Oh, well, then by all means, let's get the ball rolling with some tips, Dave.
We gotta get this started, yeah.
Let go of me!
Okay.
Unhand me!
This is from David Moore with a $9.99 tip. He said, "Welcome, guest and future game cat, Mr. Rob Yescombe," with a bunch of cat faces in
A lot
between.
of cats. Yeah, we're gonna.
Thank you.
And are we saying your last name wrong? By the way, I just want to make sure.
I'll take it any way I can get it. That sounds good to me.
Yes, go.
Yeah, we're gonna go with that unless you correct us, man. It's the best we
I'll
got.
take it.
All right.
It's very almost perfect.
Housekeeping, Brian.
Housekeeping. Make sure you click that link in the description below to join us over on Discord, where this conversation happens 24/7. It's free, man. There's no reason not to hang out there. I love when new cats show up and they're like, "Hey, I've never even known what Discord was, but here I am." It keeps happening, and I love you all for it. Make sure you support us on Patreon.com/without parole.
Games.
You guys are not on cue today.
Well, I was reading Des just commented in the chat.
Hey, Des. How's it going, buddy? Patreon.com/without parole games to hit us up for $1 more every month. The first big road trip, or the first big, I guess, different litter box that we're going to do is me and Jeremy heading down to Connecticut Saturday to pick up Tornado, my new cat. And so it's going to be an official GameCast in the room. This is going to be the very last thing filmed without Tornado here. So make sure so Patreon will definitely have that entire thing going on. We'll upload the road trip, all the fun, the meeting, the taking, the cat, the everything. But I think we should begin the show the way we begin every show. Don't you agree?
Game
Yeah.
Of should we or shouldn't we? Isn't that right, Brian?
That's right. When we put 60 seconds up on the clock on the counter, micro machines. It's our time to tell you,
Rob
the loyal
is already
GameCats,
tired.
whether you should or should not be playing. I'm tired too, man. We should all snuggle. The games we've been playing, the videos we've been watching, the movies we've been seeing, and let you know whether they're worth your time. 60 seconds. Who wants to go first?
I've got one planned, but
Nice.
it requires some props, so I got to go black out on the camera for a minute.
I'll go
Black
first.
out my camera for a second.
We've never had props on the show before.
I'm introducing props.
I'm lying.
It's a new thing.
We've seen props all the time. AJ and his sword.
I mean, this guy is here all the time.
He's
so.
a prop. Okay, well, AJ, do you want to go while Dave?
Or why don't actually we let our special guest Rob go first, man?
Rob, are you ready?
Well, I've got 60 seconds to convince you to either do or not do a thing that I've been doing.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
or not doing.
it can be
Okay.
anything.
You're a quick study.
All right, start the clock. I'm ready.
On your mark, get Des, go.
Unexplained Mysteries, you guys. It's back on Netflix. If you haven't watched it already, it's a sort of weird experience because you're watching stories of horrible things that happen to people that are unsolved, and yet they've just sort of tempered it in a way that makes it just wonderful entertainment. The first episode is it's sort of like it's like a puzzle, right? Like a game you're trying to solve in your own mind. That this guy appears to have jumped off the roof of this hotel. I won't spoil the whole thing, but it's a really fascinating puzzle that sent me down into some Reddit rabbit holes till like 5 a.m. It's gripping. Check it out. And in my last 10 seconds, covert ops on the Quest. I've been playing the stealth canoe game.
Yeah,
I think it's a kayak. Just to be clear,
I'm not an expert in canoes and kayaks, but I can tell you I'm an expert now in shooting people from canoes and kayaks.
Yeah,
it's a blast. Check it out. That's it.
Nice. That's
All
two
right.
should we's.
So I heard that they brought back the music too in Unsolved Mysteries, the original.
It's like
stuff.
a remix, right?
Is it?
It's good.
Someone excitedly described to me how it was the same music, but I guess that's not true.
Do they ever solve the mysteries, or do they just
later? Here's what they used to do.
Do they solve them in these episodes?
No,
No.
they ask you to solve them. That's the whole deal. You got to solve them.
And
And
this-
call them and you say, "Hey, we solved it." And then later in an episode, they'll say, "Hey, guys, we actually did solve a thing. This was 2 episodes ago, and we found the guy."
Cool.
Good
It's
job.
usually seasons ago, though. That's the problem. It's like by then you've forgotten how about the hole in the roof and in the flip flops and stuff.
Well, and
This is
since
the
it's on
first
Netflix,
time
they've recorded the whole thing already.
It's the
Go
first
ahead.
time since the original series that the internet has been around.
Right.
So now, like, I think this is going to be a different experience.
So everybody's
Yeah,
a detective.
Well, honestly, have you guys seen that Netflix thing, Don't Fuck with Cats?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody is a detective at this point. 2 old people on Facebook cracked a murder case that spanned the entire globe. It was insane. You can really get to the bottom of stuff these days.
I know this is going to take us forever if we comment on every single thing everybody's saying. But,
That's true.
But that specific, I say that, but then I go, but that specific episode, the first one of the series where the guy in the hole in the roof and the thing, I was riveted until the end, and I'm so let down because there's no resolution. I need to know how that ends.
It's in the title, Brian. It's in the title.
Start your investigation.
I know.
Unsolved.
It's craziness. It's very possible that no one's been able to hear me this entire time. I have no idea what's going on. Things are very
I think
strange.
they would have said something if we couldn't hear you.
I really hope so. I don't know what's going on, guys, so don't mind me. Who's up next? Hey, Dave, do you have your props?
I'll go next. Give me 1 sec. I got to go black.
All right, I got this.
Okay, on your mark. This is a
On your
long
mark, what?
On your mark, get Des. Go.
All right, so I was doing my Saturday Night Live streams where everybody gets to pick what I play, and it was a lot of fun. Dread Halls has become really popular. Also got to check out Jay Meow play that recently, but I went and revisited Riggs because somebody was leaving comments on playing that Riggs Mechanized Combat League, and it's basically where it's one of the like near launch titles for PSVR, and it's by Gorilla Cambridge, who unfortunately ended up shutting down later on, but I think they like fused with some of London Studio, or I'm sorry, Gorilla and London Studio. But essentially, you're in giant mech suits, and you have to either there's team deathmatch, or there's a mode where you have to destroy a mech on the other team, and then you charge up, and then you have to dunk yourself in the middle of the arena. And there's like these huge sprawling arenas, and it's an absolutely fantastic game. If you had Plus, you might have it for free. But Riggs is an absolute should we.
Riggs is a should we. I like it. I like it a lot. All right, and I want to keep moving right along here if that's okay. Whoa.
Hey, I'm back. What's going on?
I guess you're ready then?
I'm ready. Yeah,
all right.
ready.
On your mark.
Give me 60 seconds.
And go.
All right. So this should we is just in general about doing little things, buying little things for yourself that you just think are fun and inexpensive, just to keep yourself feeling good during this whole coronavirus thing. You're stuck in your house. What are you going to do? What I did, I already had a mask, but I decided to buy a Star Trek mask, and I like it. I'm glad about it. I got this bomber jacket, and I said, let me fill this up with some Stars Raccoon City PD Alien Nostromo patches. I got my Fox patch ready to swap out. Just buy yourself some little thing that you enjoy, and take some pride in just liking stuff. And I don't know where I'm going with this. How much time do I have left? I didn't.
You got like 7 minutes left. 7 minutes.
Oh God! Well,
it's going well.
Also, should we wear a mask? We should.
Yes,
that's the other thing. But yeah, that's my thing for the week. Just treat yourself is what I'm trying to say. Treat yourself. Buy something a little nerdy, a little cheap, a little fun, and decorate your shit.
Wow, that was rough. I mean, that was awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm gonna do mine, then we'll tackle some tips and get into the show. Let's see here. On my mark, get Des and go. You guys know I love stand-up comedy. It's the only comedy I like. I don't really have a sense of humor outside of that. Jim Jeffries, man, I think has a new stand-up on Netflix. And, I mean, just laughing from beginning to end. He tells a story about how he's going out on a date with this girl, been out a few times. They're at a restaurant, how pretentious the restaurant is. Some very, very funny stories about having to go to the bathroom really, really bad. It reminded me of an old Margaret Cho stand-up, to be honest. But I will say that, I love when people are politically incorrect. I love because that's what comedy is supposed to be. Comedy is not supposed to play by the rules of standard society. And Jim Jeffries does it almost better than anybody. He's right up there with Bill Burr. And I absolutely loved it. I will say some of it was very predictable. I really feel like I knew where a lot of the jokes were going, as if I'd heard him tell the jokes before, or if I've heard other comics do it before. But overall, absolute should we. It's just an awesome stand-up special, and I think we all could use a little bit of levity right about now. Should we? And
absolutely. All right. We got some tips to take care of here.
Excellent.
Looks like a 3-tip train. No, 2 tips. 2 tips. First one comes from Your Long Shadows with 50 North Korean dollars, who says, Radiohead Pyramid Song, 800% slower. Listen to this on YouTube. Amazing. My favorite new background tune to zone out to. You sound perfect, Brian.
800% slower?
A friend of mine showed me this. He's a master's degree student in jazz bass, and he said, you have to listen to this. And he's right. I mean, it sounds great. It's a really good kind of just like zone out, relaxing background, fall asleep song.
I'm going
to
do that.
Slowed down 800%.
You want to drone, bro?
Yeah,
drone.
exactly.
Nice. Thank you for the recommendation. I can't wait to check that out.
That's for Professor. Oh, he's still talking. Professor Lilith says, I'm more excited for Tornado than Meat Grinder. That's big.
Me too.
That's exciting.
I'm more excited for Tornado than anything. I'm more excited for Tornado than Star Wars Squadrons. That's a hot take.
Geez. In the time that I was talking, Darth Vader has come to grace his presence.
Darth Vader with a $20 donation.
You got it. I'll let you take it.
Thank you so much. Darkside is strong with all of you. Your skills are complete. Well, then, I guess we can all go home. Thank you so much.
All right, guys. So we've got 10 news stories today. We're going to talk a little bit, including about the new PS5 box art that came out. There's a new game that released this week called Dance Collider. There's also a couple games on sale. But first, of course, with our guest here, Rob, thank you so much once again for joining us, man. Like I said, I got to give a shout out to my dudes, Aceville, the Attack Cat, and Void Citizen in the chat, because they are, like me, huge fans of Farpoint. A lot of us are, actually. And just a wonderful, wonderful story. But How are you, man? How's it going? And yeah, what you been up to lately?
Well, I've been exploring every corner of this room since late February. How about you?
Well, well, all is well here. We wanted to ask you. Did you see the recent PS5 reveal at all?
Bits of it. I didn't watch the reveal itself, but sure.
Didn't watch the whole thing, just parts of it. Are you excited for PS5? Are you going to be an adopter? Do you play a lot of games too, or do you just work on?
I'm in a kind of an odd situation there because when we went into, I'm in Los Angeles,
Okay.
and when we went into lockdown, the only thing I have here is the Quest.
Okay.
So that's the only thing I've been gaming on, which is kind of weird. I mean, I guess I got the PC, but
Yeah.
I'd rather be in VR.
That's the tagline
So
of the show.
They're going to the show, yeah. But like, it is sort of weird to be kind of out of the mix and just having what's on the Quest.
Yeah, that's a really strange position to be in, especially because I mean, they've amped up the release, rate recently, but for a while there wasn't much out there. Honestly, when I got a Quest, I thought there would be more to do.
Yeah, I think Oculus did the right thing in that they were very stringent with their standards.
They curated the hell out of it. Yeah.
I think it's they're releasing their grip a little bit now, which I think is healthy. But I mean, for the money, for room scale, it's really remarkable.
Excellent. Well, so I do have some questions regarding Farpoint because, like I said, I've analyzed that game like crazy, and you actually have worked on a lot of stuff. The first game that you've worked on that I saw that I knew about was Rhyme, because when Rhyme first came out, it was one of these first like indie games for the PS4 where I was like, wow, like indie games can be these big looking, like nice looking games as well. But sorry about that if that was some thunder.
Oh wow, yeah, that was intense. I heard that.
That was really close to me.
Yeah.
But and so I want to talk about Invisible Hours first because this is essentially a game where it's a mystery and it's not this fully interactive game, but it is like where you kind of for those who don't know, it's a mystery and you basically have to solve. It's kind of like solving a murder, like it's kind of like Clue.
What I want to say is the fact that you love unsolved mysteries so much is very funny, given the way AJ is describing this game, because it sounds to me like a little bit of art imitating life here. Yeah.
So, can you tell us like how did you like end up running into that team? It's Tequila Works, right?
Yeah. So Tequila was the studio that I also made Rhyme with.
Okay.
And honestly, it was just a very fortuitous meeting that they were in the early days of Rhyme. I think they'd just done their vertical slice. So they knew what the art style was, but they didn't really know what the game was about. And it was at that time, it was very art led, wasn't really story led. And the producer that was on it at the time just happened to hit me up on LinkedIn, and we hit it off and came in to have a conversation with the studio. And the thing that's interesting about writing for games is that, I'm lucky enough to do a little bit in movies on the side. And generally speaking, if you're making what we call a linear or live action production, the bedrock of production is the script. You're like, here's the idea, here's the script, and then we build from there. But in games, it's extraordinarily rare for the story or the script to be the reason why a game is going to be made. Most of the time, it's like, well, we've got this thing that might be fun, we've got this look that might be cool, we've got this new tech that people haven't seen before. Usually it's one of those three things that's the platform on which the product is built. And so what that means for a games writer is you're often coming in when something is already in a state of production and then trying to explain why they've made this stuff.
On a question, do you ever feel like those limitations, like already having a baseline of what the game is before you even get to write a single word? I've heard a lot of creatives say limitations breed ingenuity. Like you can find something interesting in that space where you already have a framework that you have to draw in the line.
For sure. I think broadly speaking, that's true. I think it really depends on what the product is, who the team is, how susceptible they are to things that might seem radical in order to fit these conditions. But in the case of Rhyme, they had something that was clearly had a lot of emotion behind it, but they hadn't been able to. It's like therapy. You don't always know why you feel a certain way, and you need to do a sort of self-analysis and self-exploration in order to articulate that. And that's part of the job, in my opinion, of a games writer, is to say, well, okay, you've made this content, now let's look at why we think that content's been made. And when I went into Tequila Works, they, at the time, thought that the game was about a boy on an island who is lost at sea and used to be king of this island. But looking at the ages of the people in the studio, this was all devs of a certain age who were all having their first kids. We're getting to a point where their sense of their own mortality, their fear of death, was exaggerated because they were having kids, and at the same time, the act of having kids was sort of beginning to make them afraid of the limitations that a family can put on a life in the arts. Which is to say, if I want to spend my day trying to make art, if you've got a big family, that can become a difficult thing to coexist. Not impossible, but more challenging. And so ultimately, once we really dug into it, Raul, who's the creative director there, and I, we basically came to the realization that the studio was trying to make a game about grief, and part of that was about the fear of death, and part of it was about the fear of creative death. And so that ultimately is what the game is for, is to try and express that idea. And the reason why that's so important to go through that process, to say, well, why does this exist as a piece of art, is that if you've got a decent sized production, you've got lots of very capable, talented people, and it's a much flatter structure than it is in movies, which means that you should be and should expect creative input in your department from other departments as a constant. And so let's say the four of us are working together and all of us have a 10 out of 10 fantastic idea. But if only one of those ideas describes the purpose of the game as a work of art, we know which three ideas can't go in. So that's the real job, in my opinion, of certainly a games writer in my position, is to say, well, what is the prism through which all content must pass in order to describe what the game is trying to describe?
Dang.
I think
So
we're just going to let you talk for the whole I interrupted you twice, and I felt really bad because everything you said was way more insightful than what I said.
No, interrupt as much as you like, please.
I don't know where to go from there, but I will say, where did the impetus to use like historical figures come from in the Invisible Hours? Was that built in from the start? Was that a baked in concept? Or
so I'm going to try and remember that question, because I'm going to give you a long preamble before I try and answer that part.
Gotcha.
Which is that, so when we came to doing the Invisible Hours, that was very contrary to. So Rhyme is 10 hours and not a single word of dialogue in the whole thing. All of the story is told through art and symbolism. Whereas the Invisible Hours is purely, really character driven,
dialogue. Yeah.
And the reason why we settled on that was this was in the first year of VR, when none of the tech had come out yet, but we could see it coming down the pipe. And we thought, well, okay, at that time there were lots of people who were trying cardboard, which is, remember, like Google Cardboard, where you put your phone in the front and you look around, crummy VR. But you had lots of people who weren't gamers trying that out, kind of getting bored with it, and there was nothing waiting for them to graduate into. And of course, we as gamers are like, well, why don't they just play games? But people who aren't really from games and don't really understand what it means to have that much responsibility for your own entertainment, you can't put all that responsibility on them immediately. So we said, well, what's the halfway position between a game and something that's sort of purely about observation? And that's where the Invisible Hours came from, was to say, well, okay, this is something that your grandma can play, but it's also something that someone who's really versed in game language and game logic could say, okay, I understand how this is also a game. And it's interesting, it was AJ who was saying this, that it's sort of not a game. We describe it as not being a game because it's hard to describe why it is a game, but I'm going to tell you because I know you'll understand, which is that all content in every game is finite, even in something as with as broad a spectrum as like GTA or whatever. Ultimately, it's a huge world that you can go around in, but there are parameters to it. There's a huge intersection of mechanics that create emergent gameplay, but ultimately those decisions are finite. There are things you cannot do. And so in the case of the Invisible Hours, it actually is something that you are curating in the same way that you curate your experience in a sandbox game. It's just that it's much more streamlined. So it's a sort of, it's probably the only pure example I can think of a sandbox narrative game. And at the same time, there are no variables in the story outcome, only variables in the dramatic irony that you experience by choosing the order in which you view the story, which is a hard thing to pitch to somebody in a trailer, to be like, hey, it's about the pleasure of dramatic irony. Who's like, oh yeah, just get my money. No one's going to do that. So, and also, to your point about it being a murder mystery, it is a murder mystery if you are following the thread of it being a murder mystery. I've seen people play it in all sorts of crazy orders where they think it's a love story, or they think it's a pure science fiction story, or a horror story, and everything in between. So it is possible to even accidentally slip out of the intended genre into something completely different. It's just a much narrower track to go onto.
I'd almost describe it for people who haven't played it as like a choose your own adventure book where you have no stake in the out. You don't die. You don't lose. There is no. You're not embodied. You're a ghost in a choose your own adventure book, and you can choose how you go through. But you can also flip back a few pages and say, "Hey, I didn't like that outcome, or I want to see something else. Let's try what happens if I do this."
Definitely thought of it as like an interactive movie. Like it's very much like a movie. Everything plays out a certain way, and then like you get to kind of, like you said, you can change the perspective and see like the different things that play out. But I still feel like even though it's not like a traditional run and gun, jump over ledges and shoot things game, I still felt like it was this really kind of like interactive experience overall.
I love a game that gives you something to start with and just says go with it. Here's the concept. You can jump through time. You can look at any perspective in this entire house. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm not going to tell you what happens. Just go with it. And the player gets to, solve their own mystery in that way, and it's really fun.
The most microcosmic example of what we wanted the game's pleasure to be is this is a spoiler, but people live with it. It's been out for 3 years, guys. Come on.
Thomas Edison has a problem with Nikola Tesla.
That's a spoiler. In which two characters kiss, and all of the story is always the same, but your understanding of the story changes based on how you experience those fixed pieces. So you might view that scene and see it as a scene from a love story. Two people kiss. You might see it as a scene where a dangerous man is kissing a woman who doesn't know that he's dangerous. Or you might see that this is a father kissing his daughter and the two don't know who the other is. And all of those things exist in the exact same scene, but your perspective on the story is different based on how you behaved inside the unit of time that the story exists.
So
how many changes everything?
I have a big question. How many times have you watched Rashomon? Is that an influence for this sort of thing?
It's interesting. I never watched. I still to this day have never seen Rashomon.
That's so. If people don't know, that's a very kind of groundbreaking movie in that it presents four perspectives of the same exact occurrence, and it doesn't tell you which one happened accurately. It just says this is four perspectives of the same incident, and make up your mind what you think happened.
The actual genesis of that idea came way back in around, must have been around 2002, when DVDs started to become a big thing, where you could get director's commentary and click through different languages at the touch of a button. Say, I want to hear it in French, I want to hear it in German, I want to hear it in Japanese, or I want to hear director's commentary. But you're still watching the same image. And I thought at the time, wouldn't it be cool if I could switch and hear the inner monologues of these characters in this scene? So I'm watching the same scene, but my perspective on it changes based on the information that I know by hearing their monologue, inner monologue. So that was really the genesis of that idea way back when.
That's an interesting idea, yeah. Like almost a way to novelize games. Real quick, I want to take a second here because we got a bunch of tips in the meantime since we've been talking.
Hit me twice.
Okay.
I got it. First of all, we've got KillSL777 forever with the $20 donation. Doesn't say a message, though. Thank you very much, KillSL, as always. Hit me one more time. And then we've got David Moore with the $4.99 donation. Says, such a unique experience in VR. Really nothing else like it. That's very true. He's talking about Invisible Hours, of course. But, there is a theme. There is something in common with your writing, Rob, that I noticed. And you just don't seem like you can write anything without completely like blowing my mind in some way. Like there's always like this there's a lot of movies out there that will like try and just subvert expectations and do it in a way where it just doesn't make any sense. But every time you've done it, I've always just been like, whoa, like I've never seen it coming. But I've also been able to like connect the dots and be like, okay, it makes sense to me. And if it's okay, I would love to talk about Farpoint just a little bit as well.
I would, but you know what? I'm going to answer. Was it Dave's question?
What about the historical figures? What was the reason?
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
So the crucial thing. So if you're writing a murder mystery movie, you can take like a long time to build atmosphere and get to the point where, oh my God, somebody's been murdered. But in the Invisible Hours, the first thing that happens is the murder, because you can't expect people to wait for the story to get going. And that's part of the reason why I ended up saying, well, I think it makes sense to use real characters from history, because you come to it with baggage. You come to it with perspective. Before I've written a single word, you're like, I kind of know a little bit about Thomas Edison. I kind of know a little bit about Tesla. Maybe some people might know who Sarah Bernhardt is, and so on. And so you're working with familiar characters and archetypes that kind of gets you hit the ground running. And it also means that if you have an expectation of a particular archetype, that's something that I can then use to subvert, to surprise you, fingers crossed. And as a I'm going off on the tangent, but there's an example where back in, I think, 2012, there was a game called Cube, Qube, which was a puzzle game.
Yeah.
And when I was still creative director at Crytek UK, the students who made that game presented it to me at the showcase. Just as I just happened to see the student showcase, and I was like, "Oh my God, this thing's amazing!" They went on, sold a bunch of copies, and did great. And then years later, they came back to me and said, "Hey, we're porting to console. There's no story in the game. It's just a puzzle game. Could you write a story that can sit on top of this game as it currently exists, so that we don't have to spend a bunch of money on producing new content, but it means that we can make a game with story in it?" So it was a completely unique experience writing that, because, and this is something that could only happen in games, the game had already been released, had already been reviewed. I knew what reviewers expected the story to be on the basis of what it looked like, which is that it looked like a Portal ripoff. God bless them. It wasn't on purpose, but that's what it looked like, the art style of it. And so what I did was I was like, well, okay, if people are expecting a story that's like Portal, let's use that and make that part of the story so we can subvert it and surprise them. So AJ, if you like something that might turn your head upside down, check out Cube Director's Cut, which is where we're trying. I mean, I've kind of spoiled it now, but using your expectations.
I saw that.
Behaves like Portal.
I wasn't sure if that was, because IMDb can be wrong sometimes, and I wasn't sure if that was the movie Cube, which I was also a fan of. So it's good to know. And it was called Director's Cut. I was like, he directed Cube?
No. But that was an interesting experience that you would only get as a writer in games, to have a product that's finished and then to start working on it.
I'm definitely a huge believer in like storytelling through gameplay. So a lot of that, what you were saying, definitely makes sense to me. Not everything has to be so clear cut. Things can definitely be like expressed. And to me, games are an art form. I know some people just look at video games as like, just mindless entertainment, but to me, video games are absolutely like a form of art.
Oh, for sure.
Hit that.
I think that even
Sorry
to mindless entertainment.
Sorry to catch you up. So we got $30 from Joe Grover, the effing Game Cat.
Thank you so much, Joe.
You're great, Joe. He says, Rob, this is a question for you specifically, Rob. When and how did you end up writing for video games? Interested in what brought you to it? And this is some gas money for Brian. Hey,
which I'm going to hand directly to Jeremy, because Jeremy's driving both of these. So thank you very much, Joe.
How did you end up in this field? Like, were you writing previously in some other format, or you just?
It's a wild and strange story that I'll bore you with in a moment. But just to your point about games being art, that thing about mindless entertainment. So I went to art school. That's where I started out my journey in the arts.
I can't tell.
And and I had a tutor there who said, I don't know how many people know who Mark Rothko is. Mark Rothko is a painter who paints these huge monolithic blocks of color that are just sort of hypnotic to look at. And he said that Mark Rothko paintings are like TV sets for Buddhists. And I think that's kind of how I think about, when we play a game, that we're just sort of not thinking about it as a work of art. Putting your mind into that numb state that's almost meditative, to me, is a kind of art form.
Right.
to be able to put your mind in that place. If I'm playing Call of Duty and I'm not even thinking about it, being able to get into that sort of Zen state feels like looking at Mark Rothko painting to me. So how I got into games. No other human being on earth is ever going to get in through this route again. This is long closed.
Stop taking
Don't try
notes.
it at home.
Everybody
Do
stop
not
taking
try it
notes.
at home.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a terrible idea, but this is how it happened to me. So basically, many years ago, I was at art school, and I was looking around and saw, well, the employability status of people doing this bachelor's degree is about 3%. So I need to find something else to do. And I happened to have a tiny little studio where I did my sculpting and my painting opposite an Indian TV production company. And I started moonlighting, doing PR for Indian rappers and writing these very obscure Indian TV shows. And we were making a show every week that the entire budget for the show was £250 total. It was like, $350. And I happened to write a sitcom. The sitcom never even got made, but the script was shortlisted for a comedy award, very obscure comedy award in the UK. And at that time, Free Radical Design, who made Time Splitters, for some reason happened to get in contact with this super obscure awards body and said, hey, is there anybody there who knows what a game is, who wants to write games? So I was like, well, yeah, me. I was the only person under 50 who knew what a game was. And I went overnight from a £250 a week show to a $30 million game.
Wow.
I was a huge gamer. I knew what a game was. I knew what a fun game was, but I had no idea how games got made. And so it was a sort of insane trial by fire in which I was part of a game that ended up being a huge catastrophe, not in no small part because of me also, because I also sucked. And spent the next 10 years clawing out from under the wreckage of that game. So I don't recommend doing it that way. At that time, this is like 2004, I think was when I first got into that. It was like, games were like the Wild West. Like I was sitting next to a game designer whose job before they started working on this $30 million game was a fishmonger. And like somebody else was a baker. And just like, it was just this ragtag crew of people that had some idea what they were doing, but nowhere near enough for the financial responsibility that was incumbent upon us.
So question here, because this touches on something that I've heard a lot of people say lately, which is that getting into the video games industry is not the way it used to be. Like this sort of idea of this ragtag group of people from all these different backgrounds coming together and make a game. I feel like that doesn't happen at big studios anymore. Like from your knowledge of what the industry is like now, is that still even possible for somebody to sort of end up in that situation? Like,
I think even the question of what big studio means is changing. I mean, if you look at like the technical grunt of what the new Unreal Engine is going to do, like that democratizes again. We've already had in technology a re-democratization of what a small studio is able to do against the big studio, and now it's going to the playing field gets even more even. So, I think absolutely there's opportunity for people who I call Swiss Army knives, self-taught people who can do lots of different things really well, working together with that kind of free tech behind them. Absolutely, a small group of people can do something huge and amazing.
But I guess what I'm thinking there is that's more about like having knowledge of a development engine and being a programmer or being the designer of the game. But in terms of like getting into the games industry in a kind of a sideways fashion where someone says, hey, write this game for us. Is that still, I just feel like any job in general now is sort of like, okay, what are your credentials? How many years experience do you have? Have you shipped 5 games already? Like this sort of thing. It sounds like it didn't used to be that way. And
that's sort of true. I think honestly, it is better now. I think I don't think today I would get over the wall to get in. I'm very glad.
The thing is, I'm glad you got through. I'm glad you got over the wall. The thing that I worry about is that people like you aren't getting over the wall anymore, and we're not going to end up with Rob Yescombe 10 years.
I strongly disagree. I think that the fact that anybody can make a game completely democratizes that process. If you want to get into Ubisoft and get on their narrative track, okay, maybe you need a little bit of self-taught experience, but the reality is, if I was a new writer today, so maybe this is a better way to answer it. If I was a new writer today, I'd write two good narrative, one good linear narrative sample, one good Twine sample, and then I would go out to tiny studios, 2-3 people, and say, hey, do you need a hand? And once you get one game, then you can go to a team of 6. Once you get 2 games, you go to a team of 12. Once you get 3 games, you go to a team of 20, 30, 40, 50. And your career and your credits grow. And you don't even need to go up to that scale to get into a company like Ubisoft that has a pretty good track for helping people up the ladder. I definitely don't want people to feel like it's hard to get in. It's not. It's hard to write the samples. Once you got the samples, the rest is like homework. You just got to do your detective work and say, okay, where are these small studios that I can try and doorstep on social media and say, hey, we read something. Hey, do you need a hand? How can I help? A career can be built just by attrition.
And I think actually, I'm glad you answered it that way. I'm glad I'm wrong to have that impression, because that's reassuring. I mean, I think a lot of people in our community, a lot of people, us included, have poked around at the idea of maybe having some involvement in making a game someday. And, it is easy to feel like it's impossible to get in because it's so stratified at this point. But it's good to hear that it's not actually. So
I can honestly tell you, I've been very lucky to work in AAA and what we call quadruple A and in indie stuff. Wow. By far, the best experience for me has not been in AAA or quadruple A. It seems very tempting, seems very beguiling to go to something that has a big budget, can do the big fancy stuff that you want to do. I promise you'll have a better time as a creative and an easier time getting traction. The smaller the studio, the smaller the project. I mean, that's part of the reason why I was so drawn to VR. It was not just the experience of being inside a product. It was that it kind of got to reset the timer and say, well, okay, AAA doesn't even exist in VR, at least at the time when I got into it. So you're purely dealing with like people who are in the sawdust trying to figure out what the medium's going to be. That's the most exciting thing to be by far. And look, I'm lucky that occasionally I get to dip into AAA stuff to try and help out here and there. Salaries are good in those spaces, but the thing that affords me that opportunity is that I was much more interested in doing the small stuff.
Yeah, I think the hard part about getting into things, sometimes the jobs are out there, but I think people forget that like you can't just be like, this is what I'm decided to do with my life, and bam, you make it happen. Right? It takes, sometimes you have to fail over and over and over before you actually succeed at it. And so a lot of people want to hear about like, how did you do this or how did you do that? But I'm actually way more curious to hear about like all of the failures that you might have had, if there are any like worth talking about.
But I just want to hammer this part home, which is that I've been working in games now for 16 years, maybe 16, 17 years. I've applied for one job my entire career. Only one job I've applied for. And the reason why I'm saying that is that
you're so good that people come from everywhere.
Not about being so good. It's just about saying to people, if you're only applying to jobs that are posted, then A, you need to have all that experience already, and that's already a paradox. And B, competing against all the other people who may already have that experience, so it's hard to convince people. And C, usually if a job is posted, then you're going through a managerial structure to say, oh, I've got to convince HR, then I've got to convince this junior producer, then I've got to convince this producer, then I've got to convince this exec producer, then this creative director. Whereas if you are not applying for posted jobs, and instead you're looking at small studios and saying, hey, I want to work for you. A, they're flattered. B, no one else is there to compete with. And C, you can doorstep those people directly and say, hey, you're the guy who makes the decision. You're the girl who makes the decision. Right. How about me?
That's how these guys got on without parole.
That's it.
It wasn't a job for podcasts that you guys applied for. You made it yourselves. That's the thing to do. It's hard to get over that line and accept that it's not going to get handed to you. And I'm not saying that in the like, oh, you got to work harder. I just mean if someone is reaching out a hand with an opportunity in it, everybody else sees the same hand. Everybody else is grasping for it. It's going to be harder looking on Indeed and saying, well, where are the jobs for narrative designer? Where are the jobs for writer? Than it is to go to a studio that you have done your research on and say, I see how I would work here.
Right.
I mean, this is honestly, I've never heard anyone in the games industry describe it that way, but it makes total sense. I mean, that's like a pretty ingenious, kind of scrappy way to get yourself in the door. And I
if you
really
want to
have
write
never
games, make your own
that.
game and then write it.
bothered people to say, hey,
Having said that, though, I know that it can feel like, that advice seems like it's adding more work because I'm saying, well, here's more stuff you got to do in terms of your to-do list. You got to write the sample, you got to do your research, where are the studios, you got to find those people. I promise you that process is easier than having no experience and trying to apply to a job. I promise you it's easier to do it this way.
Yeah, absolutely.
real quick, while we have a moment of silence, we got a couple tips in here.
Thanks, Dave.
And I think this first one is actually a good discussion point for you, Rob, with what we've just discussed a second ago. Let's see. Year Long Shadows says, could Dreams VR open the door for some game creators to get into the VR community? So this concept of having we're talking about democratizing game design. Dreams will be soon available to anybody who pays for it to make their own virtual reality game. Do you think we're going to see development studios come out of this? People who've never touched a game before who decide, hey, man, I can do this thing. And
absolutely. I mean, that goes all the way back to, it goes back further than Minecraft. But that's the perfect example. Like time and time again, like what Source did for people, or what making Unreal free until you get over a certain gross income.
Even like RPG Maker. When I was a kid, I played RPG Maker all the time.
Absolutely. Or Twine or Neverwinter Nights or any of that stuff. Like whether someone is going to make a product that makes their millions in that particular engine or in that particular output, who knows? But in terms of helping people, understand their own creativity and find ways to express it, find ways for other people to experience it, 100%, huge asset.
What I'm curious about too is the fact that they've described potentially letting people sell games that have been designed in Dreams. And that's a unique kind of thing because Unity does that. I know, most engines, Unreal, you can design it for basically free and then they cut some out of the profits. But with a game like this, it's a more, I don't know how to say it. It's a more embodied way of creation because you are there with the Move controllers making a game with your hands. And I don't think we've ever seen, even when you're designing in VR, that's not really the interface. So I think that'll be a really interesting thing to see how that changes the way people make games in VR. The fact that you're actually kind of feeling it out for yourself as you create the thing should be really interesting.
It's interesting you say that because, I'm already starting to see, pretty seasoned pros tinkering with like using ZBrush in VR and that kind of stuff in character creation. But going back to the Invisible Hours, one of the things that was a real thrill about making it was that we did weeks of rehearsals, which is something that's very unusual for games. And the number of reasons why we did that was one, so much of it was about precise timing, making sure that scenes were the right length so they could all intersect and function together. But the other was that we were basically prototyping because when you're in VR and it's to scale with the human beings who are going to be performing those roles, if I'm standing on a theater stage watching that scene play out, I might as well be in the engine watching it play out in a previs. So that's the thing that's super exciting about VR is it's so experiential. And that affects, I think, the workflow of design massively, depending on the type of product you're making.
Excellent.
Yeah.
We got a couple more tips to get to before I forget here.
Treeland!
All right, David Moore for $4.99, and you're not on the hook for this, Rob. Don't worry about it. But he says, Mr. Yescombe, if the Game Cats, our community, make a game in Dreams, and we need a writer, are you in? Essentially, will you write one of our Dreams games?
No, I'm not in. But what I will do is hit me up on Twitter at Rob Yescombe, and I'll help you because I think it's interesting. Somebody else this week who is a sort of new to the process of writing asked me if I would co-write something with them, and it's very flattering to be asked, but I think deep down the reason why a person asks that is because they think they can't do it, and I promise you, you can do it. I promise you. And part of doing it is doing it and getting it wrong. So the sooner you can get it wrong, the sooner you're going to get it right. Don't try and bank on some bozo like me to come and fix it for you. You're the person that's going to get the experience and turn that into something that will turn into art and will turn into money. You don't need me. You just need your enthusiasm to stay at a consistent level to keep making stuff.
Yeah, I haven't forgotten about the failure question. I feel want
Oh,
to
yeah.
use after this.
Another one. Daniel Scary, $5 says, "What's your most proud achievement of your career, and what type of audience do your games have? I feel it's for a mature audience. Love." I guess that's an abbreviation for Invisible Hours.
Invisible Hours, yeah.
Is there a character limit on these tips? What do you get? But yeah, so as he asked, what do you think your most proud moment was, like as a writer, game designer?
I think there's a number of ways I can answer that. I think one of the most proud moments for me was that when Raul Rubio, who's the creative director at Tequila Works, they already had finance for a different game before the Invisible Hours came along. And I said, well, hey, instead of doing that, why don't we do this? And for a studio to have that much trust, to take all of the money out of something that they themselves had developed and put it into something different, showed incredible simpatico with Raul and with the studio. And that to me was incredibly ingratiating, that someone was willing to trust. We created it together, but he was willing to trust my input enough to make such a huge turn of the oil tanker of a studio. Other than that, I think the first time I made the animatic for the end of Rhyme, and developers are cynical at the best of times, and showing it to a couple of the guys on the team, and this sounds very self-aggrandizing, I don't mean to, but they cried. And it meant such a great deal to me, because to me, I wept making it, which again sounds sort of cheesy, but we were trying to express something really true in that game. And to see that you'd expressed it accurately enough that someone else felt the same was such a rare moment. I think also, I mean, this is really talking about recent stuff mostly, but I think to your love of Farpoint, there's a scene in the middle of Farpoint that I didn't think in a million years that Impulse Gear would go ahead and do. Impulse Gear was the studio that made Farpoint. Right. There's a scene in which these two scientists that you're tracking down sort of come to terms with their fate that is sort of bittersweet but heavy on the bitter. And that scene moved me, which is kind of an odd thing to say, because my experience on Farpoint was very different to my experience on the Invisible Hours. The Invisible Hours, I was there from day one to the final day and directed the mocap, the motion capture. Whereas on Farpoint, that was more of a work for hire, where they said, well, here are the conditions of the game, what can we make? And I handed off a script, and another director chose their cast and put those scenes together and did such an incredible job that I wept watching it when I went to San Francisco and saw it for the first time. Laura Bailey, who was just Abby in The Last of Us 2, is Eva.
I had no idea that was her until I only know that as Eva Tyson. And when I found out that was her, I was like, no, that's not a real person. That's Eva Tyson. I couldn't believe, I like that character so much that I couldn't believe that it was a real person, that it was Eva Tyson. And that was it.
She's done a ton of video games.
Laura is an incredible talent. I think she's finally getting the recognition she deserves. Putting aside the bullshit she's putting up with at the moment. She's a phenomenal actor.
Welcome to the internet.
Twitter is fun.
I think that's the thing for me is that if there is anything that my work seems to have in common, is it's usually dealing with loneliness, one form or another. And I think that if you're making work about what it is to be alone, and then you find that it is affecting other people the same way, that's a connection that wasn't there before. And so that feels like a sort of antithesis to what the work is saying, which is a sort of wonderful yin yang, I suppose, of what you're doing.
I don't think I've ever experienced the amount of emotions that I have while playing Farpoint. Like I said, the trailer alone was enough for me to just be like captivated in this story. And you know, for you with your writing, there's always this something about like this sci-fi element. I'm a huge sci-fi nerd, so you always have this like sci-fi touch that just resonates with me. And the story from start to finish, and of course, like you said, the actors did a phenomenal job. Impulse did a phenomenal job with that game overall. That was the first game that I played in VR. I was like, when I first got VR, I was like, this is amazing. But when I played Farpoint, was the first game to make me go, VR is the future. Because it was just, it has everything. It has the storytelling, the gameplay, the world, everything. And I think I know exactly the scene you're talking about. It might have been the one that I kind of quoted as a joke when Brian introduced me in the show. And I said, you know, maybe Earth isn't home anymore. I don't know if that was the scene in particular, but I don't want to spoil anything about Farpoint, because I still have to encourage everybody to go and play Farpoint. I know we got a lot of love for it here, but I got to ask you about the ending without giving too much away.
I don't want to spoil anything, but let's talk about the ending of the game.
I have a question about the ending. Was it designed to be kind of like open to interpretation? Was it supposed to be kind of like open-ended, or was it designed with like a potential like continuation? Like, is there supposed to be a story that continues?
He says, "Is there?"
No, I'm not asking if there's a Farpoint 2. I'm asking if the story, the way the first game wraps up, if it's designed to just kind of like, because by the end of it, it just left me there just in shock and just kind of like, I mean, I thought about that ending for like a week. I still think about that ending like constantly, and so I was just curious about that.
It's interesting you say that, because only just now has it dawned on me that in the things that I've been working on that I feel a connection with, it ultimately, when death occurs in those stories, it's usually about how death is not what we expect. And I think that's true in Rime. I think that's true in the Invisible Hours. I think it's true in Farpoint as well. I don't think it's necessarily useful to your experience for me to sort of hammer home the articulation of it, particularly because, so just as a sidebar to talk about Rime. So in Rime, some people got to the end of Rime and were sort of half confused. They were like, I think I know what it's about, but it didn't fully make sense. And that's because what happens in Rime is that, unbeknownst to you, most of the time, is actually 2 stories or 3 stories are happening at the same time. One is the story that the game appears to be. One is the story that's sort of the twist ending, as it were, and the other is a sort of halfway between the two, so that you can never fully say, well, I can say exactly what this sequence of events was. And that's something that we were trying to bring in Farpoint. We ran out a little bit of time, so we never really got to fully, I think, embrace that idea, but it sounds like you got the sense of that anyway.
I feel like we're coming back to Unsolved Mysteries here again. But a couple more tips to get to, actually, real quick.
I definitely, to me, it was kind of just like open to interpretation, because I saw both reactions to it. I know, Dave, but I did see kind of both reactions. Some people were like, oh my god, that ending was amazing. Some people said, oh, I don't know about the ending. To me, I was just like, I just want to think about that ending, and there's so many different ways that it plays out in my head. So I definitely was just a little bit more curious about, maybe, you know, obviously sometimes somebody has an intention when they write something, and it gets portrayed, you know, when somebody else sees it, or perceived, I should say, the perception, you know, back to the perception again, of it can be perceived so many different ways, that ending can, for sure.
I had, going back to my days in art school, I had the same tutor who said that Rothkos were like TV sets for Buddhists. He said that art is a language that cannot be translated. And I think that if you can sit down and articulate exactly what everything meant, then it kind of takes away the magic of it. It's like pulling back the screen in the magic trick. Right. I think for me, part of the skill of any art form, whether it's games or something else, is that at some point to sort of let go and let it become something slightly different to what you thought it was going to be. Because then it remains magical to you as an author, and there's a magic for the viewer. So that's something. I think ambiguity is a big part of what I'm interested in.
You did it well, though. You did it really well. It's because, like I said, there's sometimes people try to be ambiguous about things, and it's like, you end up having a lot of plot armor, a lot of like plot holes and stuff like that. And like, this just to me was just very open, and it is like just once again a great, like, just lots of deep thought behind it, which I really appreciated.
I think if you can feel, if one can sense the intention of the work but can't articulate the intention of the work, then that's a great place to be.
I definitely felt things playing that game. I felt a lot of things.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Let's tackle these couple tips here. You want to hit that for me?
Yeah. Start at the bottom and move up, because the top one is a question and the bottom two are not questions.
Sure. Then
So,
start the bottom with Delirium Drew. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, you got it.
Delirium Drew VR with the $4.99 donation says, seriously, GameCats, get the aim and the game. Farpoint is a must-play PSVR title. Holds the 6th spot on my personal top 10 list, which is a nice compliment, Drew, except I watched your top 10 list on Twitter, and there was no Resident Evil 7, so no, void. Get your shit together.
All right.
Next tip comes from Killicell777 forever with the $10 donation. Yeah, I heard the background a little bit. I knew I would like Farpoint because it came out on my birthday.
Oh, serendipity.
Excellent. It would suck if it was bad. It was bad.
We did that on purpose.
It would suck if it was bad, and then you ruin your birthday forever. At least you get to celebrate every year with something cool.
Fuck you! Fuck you! Get out of here!
And that's Desert Blinn with the $5 donation, saying we actually, Des and I did a Why We Love episode on Invisible Hours and Farpoint, I believe. With $5 donation saying, Rob, thanks for your enthusiasm for VR and advice for creators. Question: what do you think creators have to do to realize the full potential of VR?
Oh God, potential of VR. I don't think I can even fathom the full potential of VR. The thing that I would stress at this point, like we're at a really interesting juncture in VR, that on the one hand, I understand the appetite for big AAA games in VR. But all of the things that you love in big AAA games, most of those things sort of bubbled up from the fringes into those games. To me, right now, I'm really interested in protecting the fringes of VR. Like when I first got into VR, this would be like 6-7 years ago. I loved picking through Steam and seeing like the bullshit that people put on there, like the half-finished madness. You're like, great, that's what I want to see. Show me the chaos. Show me the work in progress. I'm really excited about PSVR. I'm really excited about the Quest because it's bringing a pretty good consumer experience with a pretty good consumer-facing library that helps expand the user base, which helps make it more practical for more people to get into VR as developers to make that investment. But don't leave the fringes behind. Don't forget the sketches. That's the stuff that I think is really interesting. And I think that as AAA becomes a more practical consideration for studios about doing AAA VR, if you are making your own content, up until this point, if you did like, a zombie shooter, or you did, a fishing game, or you did, a war game, whatever it is, whatever. If you're doing something that AAA is definitely going to do and is definitely going to do better, it's time to get the fuck out of there. Like you need to become the person who's doing something sufficiently weird and sufficiently off center that you're going to find a new audience. Because if right now, and this is speaking purely to developers, if you're pushing all your chips onto genre pieces, we would say, in the next year or so, you're going to get Splinter Cell, you're going to get Call of Duty, you're going to get Medal of Honor, you're going to get Assassin's Creed, all of that, and Far Cry, all that stuff is going to come into VR.
Confirmed.
And
Rob just confirmed everything.
So, it's time to get on the left foot. Otherwise, you're going to get wiped out, in my opinion.
So was it tough?
Um,
Was it tough to write in jetpacks into Farpoint 2? Like, I know that changes the story quite a bit. Was that difficult to get into the?
It's a great. I can tell you, I'm not working on Farpoint 2, so I'm not sure what the deal is over there. So I hopped from the Invisible Hours over to Valve and did a tiny little bit on Half-Life Alyx, and from there went into a movie after that. So I sort of, unfortunately, I wasn't around to handle Farpoint 2. So I don't know. I'm going to be surprised as much as you are.
The last we heard from Impulse, do you still keep in touch with them?
A little bit off and on.
The last we heard from them, they said that they were working on a new AAA project. So you said obviously you don't have any, like, you're not working with them right now, but do you know if they're still, like, working on stuff over there, or what? Are they still pretty active?
Yeah. I mean, Farpoint did great for them and for Sony. So yeah, for sure, they're working on something great. I'm sure.
The aim controller is also, like, one of my favorite peripherals of all time. That's why I've got this thing here. I mean, this thing is, I act like a kid when I have this thing because it's just an amazing controller. So I know they did, more than just the game. They created this aim controller, which we've used. It's kind of an ongoing joke where everybody's always asking if the game has aim support, because just everybody wants aim support for everything.
I remember when I first saw the prototype for Farpoint, when they just had, like, a little bit of Mars and the prototype aim controller. That was the thing. Like, at that point, I'd use the Vive and you'd use room scale, but it was the first time I'd see something that was so, like, consumer friendly and was polished to that degree already. That was the point at which I was like, I'm out of flat games. I don't think I'm going to do another one. I just went all into VR.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, as much as there is always the sort of PC master race crowd, I think people see that the aim controller is, like, kind of a clear benefit of the platform of PSVR that they don't really have on the PC side. And I'm curious why Oculus hasn't really tried to capitalize on that at all, because there are so many shooting games in VR. I mean, it's like you can throw a rock and hit 10 shooting games in the Oculus store or on Steam or anywhere. But
I like the aim controller. I think that I'm a big proponent of Onward, which is a military sim.
I haven't tried that one yet.
We're keeping an eye on that.
Yeah, I was well into that in its first generation, way back on the Vive. I must have put like 200 hours into that thing, and wow.
That's like us with Firewall, essentially. Firewall is our
exactly. And I think that, like, with that, there's something so exciting about having the two-handed weapon, taking one hand off to get a grenade, grabbing the front of the gun, taking that hand off to get a clip to put it. Like, it's just the fluidity of having two hands is super exciting when you're dealing with that stuff. But I think it's a matter of taste. I mean, there are lots of people that I know who get, like, a sort of a solid frame that you can clip your controllers into.
Yeah.
On the Rift, I forget the name of the what it's called.
I think it's Pro 2. Yeah.
I think it's a matter of taste. I think, and also I wonder how many people who are watching now and who watch this subsequently listen to this have already tried VR and how many haven't. I would love to know that, if there are people watching who haven't yet tried.
We always have a few people hanging around who are interested in it and are kind of looking for reviews or looking for some feedback on what it's like. And then will tell us when they finally get one, hey guys, I finally joined the family. Here's my headset, over on the Discord and stuff. So that's really
we
cool.
have a lot of people that hang around, like our most recent Darth Vader, who's in the chat. What's up, dude? He was hanging around for a while, and he just picked up his headset and absolutely loved it. So
yeah, it is for anybody that's listening that hasn't tried it yet. It is truly transformative in a way that cannot be described. One of our biggest problems in VR is it's impossible to market. Right. Because I can't show you a video and say, here's what it's like. You're like, well, it looks like a game, but not quite as good as a AAA. You're like, well,
that's why people like us have to labor in obscurity on YouTube for years and years, shouting at the top of our lungs, hey, this thing is really good. You guys should really look at this thing. And it takes a while for people to catch up, but I think we're finally getting there at this point.
Absolutely. And I think that, to me, I have no platform affinity. Of course, I'm excited that anybody's playing VR in any form. But the thing that's exciting to me is that we're now moving away from 3 degrees stuff like Cardboard or like the Go. That now there was a point, even as recently as a year ago, where someone would say, "Yeah, I've tried VR," and then when you dig into it, it's like, "Oh, they did a 360 video on the Go," and you're like, "No, man, like that ain't it."
Yeah.
Have you picked up an object? Have you walked across a room? Have you jumped with your real legs? Like that's the difference.
Right.
So yeah, anybody who's watching who's not quite sure about it, man, jump in. The water's fine. It really is amazing.
Absolutely. I want to ask you real quick. We were talking earlier about kind of the impact, the emotional impact of certain stories in video games, and the power of that. Did you have a chance to play Ghost Giant?
No, but I'm familiar.
I highly suggest that you play Ghost Giant. All 3 of us here I think almost anybody who played it had a very strong emotional response to that game. And I think it's kind of what you were talking about in terms of something at the fringes that I haven't seen before. Like on the surface, it's just a puzzle game that any kid could play. But there's something deeper to it that is really like, it's a stage play. It's a parable about depression. It's all these things that is so well done. And I think it couldn't have been presented in any other format in a way that would be so engaging and actually make you, at the end of the game, even though you're streaming on YouTube, start tearing up. Like it's very powerful, and I would say definitely check that out. We got one more tip to get to real quick.
One of the hardest things to do. I'll let you do.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Once he starts, he can't stop. So I don't. Sorry about that. Johnny Rypop the Stray Cat, one of our great moderators, says, "Rob, it looks like there is a Without Parole Farpoint tournament coming up soon. Hope you can sit back and watch the fun the players have playing it. Keep up the great work and stay breathtaking."
Thank you. Well, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Actually, no, that's okay. That's the only one. Got it.
So one of the hardest things to do in games in narrative is. So do you guys remember? You guys have all seen Inception?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The scene at the end where Cillian Murphy goes into the black room and he sees his dad dying on the bed, and he says, disappointed. He can't speak. He says, "Yeah, Dad, I know you're disappointed that I'm not you." And he says, "No, I'm disappointed that you tried." And at that moment, the meaning of all the story just rushes into your mind. You're like, "Oh, I get what this whole thing's about, and why do these people feel this way, and why I feel this way watching it." That self-revelation that character's having in a great game narrative, you have to find a way for that same self-revelation to happen inside the mind of an actor who doesn't know their lines, which is the player. And I don't know that I can describe how one does that, and there are many instances in which I've not succeeded to do it. But trying to find a way to make your behavior inside a game allow you to have that emotional revelation, but not to say to the player, "You have had this revelation," because then it's not theirs.
Yeah.
Anybody that's played Invisible Hours and Farpoint know exactly what that means, what you just said. And if you haven't, go play Invisible Hours and Farpoint, and you'll understand.
It's a really slippery slope too, and you can mess up very easily, because I've seen things where people try to implement that emotional moment in a this is VR way that involves player interaction. So I'm thinking specifically of this game that ends with a big scene where this is Fated, the Silent Oath, I think, Chapter 1.
The only chapter.
Someone very close to you dies. Big spoiler for anybody out there. And it's this big emotional scene, and they ask you as the player to nod your head up and down with the VR headset to confirm that you've experienced the torment of this occasion. And I was just like, that completely kills the feeling of this moment, because you took a silly VR first gen mechanic, nod your head up and down to say something, and killed an emotional scene with it. So I feel like, you obviously are pretty good about that. You haven't done anything like that before, but there's always sort of a potential for people to think that something is revelatory because it includes this new mechanic or this new way of interacting, and then it sort of just falls flat. One more tip from Darth Vader himself.
Don't tweet me!
AJ, you take this one?
That is Lord Vader with the $9.99 donation. Says, "I love my VR headset so much. It's made me meet so many new friends and expanded my horizon on gaming." Yes, we are very glad.
he didn't have many friends before when he was, the Sith Lord. And all that stuff. He just kinda,
Also, heads up,
Right.
Your Long Shadows. I wrote down the exact same thing that you commented. Rob Yescombe describing the player as an actor who doesn't know their lines. Like, might have been the coolest thing I've ever heard.
Oh, for real.
Oh, guys, we haven't looked at anything on our agenda, have we?
What are you
No,
gonna do?
we haven't.
It's a
We're
slow
shit.
week. Let's just do this all night.
Let's just
I
talk
mean,
to Rob.
it's been really, really awesome hearing. I tell people all the time, I really think that you are the best writer for PSVR games that have currently gotten to experience the work. And I really cannot encourage developers out there, PSVR developers out there, some that we may know, some that might be watching, that if you need a writer, please reach out to Rob, because he just has blown my mind every single time.
Very
and
thank you.
it's just amazing, man. I think you just give me exactly what I want, but then turn it on its head a little. So it's always got a nice surprise as well. So it just resonates with me. Your work just really resonates with me, man.
All right, that's the limit of compliments I can accept at this point.
Yeah, we're about how cool you are, if that's okay.
Yeah. Listen, I know I don't know if we're trying to wrap this up or what, but I really, man, I want to know more about Rob as a gamer. Can you can we rewind time a little bit and go back? I mean, pre-VR, can you just tell us kind of where it got started for you? Why gaming's even an interest?
The first computer that we had was an Amstrad. Way back, this would be 84, 85, something like that.
It was negative 3 years old. Yeah, it was
Get
negative.
out of here, Dave. I was actually trying to figure out how old Rob was by talking about this.
There you go.
Because
There you go.
I feel,
I'm 14 years old as we stand here.
was it 40
But-
what?
41.
I knew it.
So
I knew it. You're 6 months older than me. I knew it. I was yeah. So I was we have to have a similar video game background. I just knew this was
Okay, well,
coming.
let's see if we cross over here. So I had a friend who had the BBC Micro, and I kind of saw that was cool. My parents very generously got us an Amstrad, I think because they thought we could do our homework on it, which we couldn't. So we ended up just playing games on it. And in those days, as you'll remember, Brian, you loaded games off a cassette tape, and it took 30 minutes to load one game.
Yeah.
So if you were going to play a game, you had to be absolutely certain this was the game you wanted to play. The amount of entertainment that you had waiting for that game to load, it was like a line-by-line dot matrix image would slowly load over 25, 30 minutes of the game you were going to play. And in those days, it was early text adventures, Rampage, which was the game where you a bunch of monsters smashing up a city.
Rampage. Yeah.
Target Renegade, which was
but these are way shittier versions of those games that you guys love. These are really, really primitive compared to the arcade.
Yeah. This is. I mean,
the home versions
people
were
who
awful.
know what an Amstrad computing is like it ain't pretty. So we went from the Amstrad. Our parents knew that consoles were not things that homework could get done on, so we didn't get in on the Atari, which was sort of was still a computer, but was sort of felt more gamey. So we went to the Amiga, Amiga 500. So on that was the first time I got to use a program called Deluxe Paint. Deluxe Paint was a paint program, but you could also animate in it. You got 30 frames per project. And I remember doing a little animation of Robert Patrick, the T-1000 in Terminator 2 melting. And that was my 30-frame animation, learning how to a little bit of basic animation. But my parents were smart. They were like, hey, we know that the Super Nintendo, you can't do homework on that. We know you can't do homework on the Mega Drive. So we basically got stuck with the Amiga all the way to the PS1.
Oh, wow.
I was still playing Amiga games the day that the PlayStation 1 arrived in the house. And
did you go back and try Super Nintendo, Genesis, all that stuff at some point, or you just missed that whole chapter?
We did. No, I'm lying. Actually, we had Dreamcast came after. So we had friends who had the Mega Drive and the SNES and all that stuff. So we got to try all that stuff. But at home, it was the Amiga. And then I was at a friend's house who had PlayStation 1 and or the original PlayStation, and they were playing Resident Evil. And I can't explain to people who didn't go through this process, but 3D graphics where you walk around in a three-dimensional space was new. And also that the idea that you didn't have to go in one direction, that you could be like, oh, I don't want to go through that door, I'm going to go through that door. Like, that was unheard of. So going through that door on the right from the main hall and having the dogs jump out and kill me, I was like, wow, that whole game is amazing. I played the whole game now.
Yeah.
I realized you just got like hours waiting beyond that. I played that at a friend's house, and I was like, I must have this. So that was the next thing for me, was the PlayStation 1. And then I was on the console track. I'm a big Dreamcast guy.
I'm such a
Dreamcast for life.
within my reach here. Hold on.
You need to, when you get a spare moment, if you ever get any spare time, you should definitely check out Resident Evil 7 if you haven't already.
Yeah.
I've got my arcade stick, which is one of the best. I love this thing. This is incredible. It's so well made. It's covered in dust because I haven't plugged my Dreamcast in way too long, but it's right here. I actually used to run, and we're here to talk about you, but I used to run like a pop-up arcade in Orlando that was just Dreamcast based entirely.
Oh man,
it was so easy because they had so many fun peripherals. Like there's fishing rods, there's maracas, there's all kinds of weird flight sticks and stuff, crazy shit. And you can burn the games on a CDR. So I just brought 5 Dreamcasts.
You're the reason Dreamcast failed.
And wrote it out. Just like a DJ set, like, okay, Power Stone 2 for an hour over here, Marvelous Capcom over here, and people loved it. The thing is, it failed so spectacularly, but there's so much love for it still, which is no other console, I think, really has that kind of reputation. So I'm glad you say that you know.
For people who don't know, hang on, let's see. Was my battery running out? Okay, hang on. Let me go plug in. So I keep talking to you guys. So.
Take us on a tour, man. Let's see the whole place, the whole room.
It's our industrial wasteland that we're staying in. Dreamcast was the first console that had online gaming, Choo Choo Rocket, where you plugged in your telephone wire into the side of the thing. It was amazing. But every generation of console, there's always some sort of defining design sensibility that changed my outlook on games. And on the Dreamcast, the two things, one was Power Stone 2, where you could mix items that you found in the game to make new items. I was like, wow, that was an incredible idea. And that you could use the environment as part of a fighting game. But the big feature that I still reference today was in Shenmue, where it was the first game that bored the player on purpose.
Yes.
And it sounds flippant, but the thing that was so amazing about that was that it bored the player on purpose. That meant that when something exciting happened, holy shit, it was like the most exciting that had ever happened to you.
So I'm a little younger than you. I'm 33, but I will always remember the Christmas morning where I played Shenmue with my new Dreamcast for the very first time. And I was blown away. Nothing like this had ever existed. Even if it was boring, it was like, it's something new. I've never seen a game like this. And so much has been taken from that over the years, even though it's clunky now to go back and play. But Yakuza games kind of take that into the future and kind of keep that sensibility. But I don't know. Dreamcast was incredible.
Yeah. So anyway, from then I was like, we were so obsessed with games that we had the Dreamcast, original Xbox, and PlayStation 2 all in the house at the same time. We were big into like Halo LAN parties and all that stuff, and then then eventually I wound up at Free Radical around that time.
And now we're all caught up.
Not to belabor the Dreamcast too much, but the last thing I want to say, the takeaway for me, you said you had 2 takeaways from the Dreamcast. My big one is really the variety of input methods, and for me that's sort of almost like a proto Wii. It's a proto VR because you have a fishing rod that is a fishing rod that reacts in real time to your movements, and you pull in the thing.
The memory card that was also a little mini handheld console. Amazing, genius.
But I think consoles after the Dreamcast didn't really go too hard into like, hey, here's a rhythm game. Let's build actual maracas for you to play it with. Which VR, I think, makes your move controllers whatever, or your touch controllers or whatever you've got, your motion controllers become the interesting input method that they used to have to manufacture, because regardless of what game you're playing, it can represent that feeling of tactile interaction with something, you know.
Can we get a couple tips out of the way before we move on, guys? I think we're about 3 behind.
Yep.
Okay. This first one.
That is. Oh, good.
Let's all say it at the same time. Believe 3, the Spartan Game Cat says, "Wait, this wasn't an extra developer interview? It is a developer interview, but it's one that you guys will actually watch."
It's like a developer hangout. How about that?
You're captive. And then we got another one.
Fuck you! Fuck you! Don't
Hey, Jay, you can take that one if you want.
I love Tree Guy.
Help Tree Guy.
That is Genetic Blasphemy with a $5 donation. Says, thank you so much for stopping by, Rob. Great stuff. I will specifically be interested in future games that you have your name and efforts attached. Yes, do let us know. Did you say you were working on anything right now? You said no, right?
He said Farpoint 2.
No, I am. I can't say what any of it is yet. I'm still waiting. We're still waiting. In the next few days, I'll find out whether it's a real thing or not. So,
Can you say if it's virtual reality related?
it is. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, there's a couple. One is a fairly well-known IP that hasn't been used in VR yet. So that's I'm waiting to find out about that.
Everyone, speculate now. Go.
Don't drop us tidbits like that, Rob. You can't be dropping us this.
No, that was perfect. Now I'm hyped for whatever it is.
Everyone's gonna go crazy.
It's not a game IP. It's different. It's from other media.
Interesting.
And the other one is a completely original new thing that we're purely working out very slowly. Something that I think would be cool for VR that I can say absolutely nothing about.
Okay.
But
Okay.
yeah, there's stuff in the works. Fingers crossed.
Final tip comes to us from Brian Piccolo with the $4.99 donation saying, former Choo Choo Rocket player here too. Thanks to all of you for hours of entertainment. I think he's talking directly to you, Rob.
Yeah, I take full responsibility for that.
You should. You really should. Rob, I was sort of just letting you, I was sort of just like, I wanted to hear, every detail of every game and every console you wanted to talk about. But man, we had the exact same experience. I mean, I was actually on Commodore 64 for a really long time, and I had to buy the Sega Genesis myself, or the Mega Drive, right? Because my parents were like, no game systems, absolutely not. Commodore 64, this is whatever. And then like the Genesis kind of blew everybody in my family away. They were like, Sonic the Hedgehog, this is really good. And I had it for too long, and I got bored.
You said to this day your parents still play Hot Shots Golf with you like all the time.
Oh,
right?
my
You got
dad
them
might
into
be a
gaming
bigger gamer.
eventually.
No. My dad was a gamer before I was born. My dad got me into games, and he might be a bigger gamer than I am, which is insane, right? There's a competition going on constantly.
Gotta get him on the channel one day.
He doesn't like VR. He doesn't like VR.
Man,
I put him in VR a couple times. He's like, nah, maybe next time. It's not there yet. I'm like, you're the guy I fight against every single day.
you showed him everybody's golf, I'm sure.
Oh no, that was the thing that almost sold him. We got real close, but he had actually hurt his leg when I showed it to him, so he could only sit on the couch and kind of not really play it. And I felt so bad because he didn't get the full experience. But what I wanted to say was that I had the Sega Genesis for too long, and I was like, oh man, it's just like not enough stuff I'm interested in, and things that were moving on without me. And I actually ran to a friend at a gas station who was like, you have to come over and check out this thing I got. It's called the Sony PlayStation, and there's a game called Resident Evil, and it's going to blow you away. And I was like, I mean, I guess, sure. And he showed it to me. I had the exact same experience. For me, it was like Maniac Mansion, but, zombified and scary and new and current. And I was like, man, this is everything I want gaming to be. And that's what shotgunned me right back into gaming again. So it's cool that you had a similar experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because having worked in games for so long, at some point you end up feeling like you're sort of repeating yourself either in the work that you're doing or in the types of products you're involved in. And that was the thing that VR really gave to me, is it just reignited my interest in making games.
Excellent. I think we should tackle these last couple tips, and then we probably need to move on so we can actually
Talk something.
Yeah. All right. Is this the last tip? This is from Hugh Guyver with the Australian $10 donation saying, going to watch later. In the meantime, have some pizza money. Thank you very much for the pizza money.
As always, say hello to your cousin, Matt.
Yes.
Matt Guyver.
Yep.
Oh, man.
Big thing.
All right.
All right.
So we're gonna get the show started.
Yeah.
An hour and a half after we start. Rob, do you want to hang out and talk about some PlayStation VR news with us? I don't know what your schedule is like, man.
Sure, let's see how we do.
Fantastic. AJ, what's first on the Roper Report?
All right. So, first of all, we got the first reveal of the PS5 box art in the form of it was the Spider-Man Miles Morales thing. And Brian, I don't know if you can shoot it up on the screen.
Couldn't do my best for you.
But yeah, so we got a first look at that. It's slightly different, but what the main thing I've noticed is that they're kind of going with this new PlayStation Studios brand. You know how they've renamed everything PlayStation Studios, and it's like black and white. And it seems to me like the box art is resembling that in particular.
What I really like, and I think is interesting, is that everything is starting to match the PSVR design.
Yes.
It's getting that futuristic white and black sort of sleek look. And I don't know. I think maybe that's a conscious decision on their part.
You guys have seen some of the other renderings, right? People have swapped out the blue for white and just to kind of see how it all looks together. Do you think this was the best decision for them?
I mean, I'm fine with the white and black. I really like it. A lot of people are saying they're waiting for a black only one, and it's like, I mean, my PS4 is already.
Rob, have you seen the PS5 design? What did you think of it?
I think that no matter what the design is, after a week it becomes furniture in the house and you don't notice it anymore.
I'm 100% right there with you.
I think I give them bonus points for having this spaceship looking thing, though.
Yeah.
Definitely some bonus points for me.
From what people have speculated based on the size of the disk drive compared to other consoles, it's going to be the biggest console that's ever been released, which might cause some issues in entertainment centers or stands. You know, like where I have my PS4 right now, I'm not sure this thing will fit. So people might have to make adjustments. But that seems in service of having a bunch of high quality components and really like, you know, next gen type hardware. So
but yeah, I think if they're trying to hammer home this whole PlayStation Studios brand, then I like what they're doing here. I think they're trying to associate everything with that look, that feel. How many times do you see the original PlayStation 1 logo or hear that PlayStation 1 splash screen and go, oh, like
yeah.
To me, it's that establishing that brand. And so I like it. It looks very clean too. I think it's pretty clean.
It does look clean. My hope was that they were going to make it really, really ugly to convince me to go all digital next time around. But I'm like, it doesn't look ugly. It looks pretty sleek, and I want more of them. And I'm a collector, and I can't get away from that. And I need to get away from that because I've run out of room. My place is all video games. I got no space left.
All right, so next we have Perp Games has announced in collaboration with Coin Flip Studios. They say on Twitter, quote, "We're happy to announce that Ninja Legends VR will be coming to PlayStation VR on August 28th.
So I've
physically and digital. Physical and digital.
And it's pretty fun, but expect like an arcadey kind of wave-based thing. My favorite thing about it is that it's got that samurai movie thing where you slice a guy and then he goes kashink and the top half of his body falls off. Yeah. And that's just endlessly satisfying, and it happens quite often. So it's a pretty good game. It's also one where, like, for melee combat, it's not always just one guy attacking you directly on. A lot of games are just like you fight this guy, then you fight that guy. You have to keep an eye on, there's multiple enemies coming at you, and there's sort of a juggling thing going on. So it's arcadey. Don't expect a whole lot, but it's fun. I think you guys, if you're into ninja stuff, will have a good time.
Who's not into ninja stuff? Who's not into ninjas?
That's a really good question. When do we get Tenchu again? Where the fuck is Can you write a Tenchu for me, Rob? I would love a Tenchu.
To that point, I did a few years ago. I looked into who owns the rights to Tenchu because I was desperate to try and reproduce it. It's a very difficult thing to do because the rights are held by multiple different parties. Some of whom are in Japan, some of whom are in the US, some in Europe. So I hope somebody does manage to do the effort to do it, but it was a bit much for me.
Yeah.
Well, what about this Ghost of Tsushima coming out?
Ghost of Tsushima seems more like a Kurosawa movie. They actually have a mode in it that's a cinematic mode that they specifically
Right.
designed under the guidance of the Kurosawa family estate, which is really interesting. And it's called Kurosawa mode, and it's created to make it feel like a classic, Seven Samurai Yojimbo, one of those old movies. But it doesn't seem like a stealth game. Tenchu is a very specific breed of game, and not too many have done that since then.
Poor Ninja Legends. We always end up talking about Tenchu whenever we mention this game.
Yeah,
there's
sorry,
no way.
Legends. What do you...
But yeah, I know my dude Meow Meow the Game Cat is in the chat, and he's been just going off on this game, saying it's amazing, that it's a lot of fun, that if you like this game, you're going to love it. Also very physical. But and Rob, I know you said you got a Quest. If you get a chance, this is on Quest as well for that you can check out.
Yeah, I've played it. I think it's good. Well worth a look.
Cool.
Can you guys who've played it talk to me about like what makes it more than just like a ninja wave shooter?
Like Fruit Ninja.
Is there a progression system? Are there upgrades? What's going on with this thing to differentiate it?
There's weapons. You do have to progress through the stages. It's not like you can just pick any level from the beginning and pick any weapon you want. But beyond that, I think it is really very straightforward. It's just kind of a wavy ninja game, and it's mechanically satisfying. It looks good enough. It runs well enough. So don't expect anything major, but it's fun. It's good.
Yeah, that works for me. I'll keep my expectations in check.
All right, so Affected the Manor actually got an update today on Quest as well called the Gauntlet, and we do know that this is going to be coming to PSVR as well. They said there's no date at this time, but essentially it's supposed to be. I've got their fact sheet right here that I'm gonna cheat, and like I got my cheat sheet here. I haven't played it myself, obviously, but they say, quote, a brand new Affected gameplay experience, the Gauntlet presents a unique speedrun challenge with randomized events. A global leaderboard will set the pace as players are challenged to outpace their friends and the worldwide VR community. The Gauntlet uses the built-in microphone to measure players' fear level. These are Quest-specific features. That's a Quest-specific feature. So we got to take that with a grain of salt. That might not come to PSVR, but essentially it is a speed run Gauntlet thing that you have to survive, and it is with what you got. It does have leaderboards as well.
That's a really interesting kind of design choice for a horror game. I've never seen a VR horror game that says, hey, we're a speedrun mode now, and it's randomized and there's leaderboards. Like, that's, as far as I know, unprecedented in terms of a game mode for a horror title in VR.
Well, I like it because you have to kind of face your fears and run through it as fast as possible. Yeah. For anyone who doesn't know, by the way, we are huge Halloween October lovers over here. So I'm definitely always trying to sneak in anything scary, anything Halloween related. We are counting down the days, but it's very much like a haunted house that you just walk through. And honestly, I think it's much better than any haunted house that you can go and pay $20 and get. But yeah, the thing that gets my attention the most is the randomized aspect of it. That's one thing that I think makes Dread Halls so terrifying, is that you never know what to expect. So if done really well, this could be absolutely terrifying.
I'm sorry, does the randomized element, was that something they talked about in the Gauntlet update?
Yes.
I missed that. All right, because I've known about this for like way too long, and because I was really disappointed when they first told me about it, because I was like, man, really want like when I want to be scared something, my last thing I want to be doing is running through it. I want to like stand back, take back, and take it all in, listen to all the sound effects, and just like creep around every single corner and let my tension level build and build and build. I don't want to race through it and see if I can beat someone's time. It's just like kind of like isn't what I'm into as far as horror is concerned.
It's funny that you say this. Someone who has speedrunned Resident Evil 7 several times on your channel.
Just once for the trophy, man. Like if there's not a trophy, then I'm not going for it. And any excuse to play Resident Evil 7 again and again and again is a good one. But this is like, Effective is supposed to be the series of, no, it's supposed to be the manor, the whatever, the whatever, the whatever, the amusement park. It's supposed to be all these different things. And it's been, yeah, like the bathroom, right? Don't touch the tub. It's infected.
Yeah.
But so far we haven't seen any other environments. And I'm like, man, I want these guys to like stop it with this. Like, please, like, I want to see affected the next area. Because I would pay however much this is, like $7-8, whatever. I would pay that once every 6 months for a new affected room.
This was actually a free update, so it might be free on PSVR as well.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Rob, do you do horror games?
Interesting you say that. So I like to, for the last few years, I've thrown a Halloween VR party. And throwing people into some weird stuff. I would say generally no. I'm always interested to see what they do on a technical level, but I wouldn't say I derive a great deal of pleasure from being horrified.
So you haven't?
We certainly do.
VR,
I played the first like half hour of Resident Evil 7 way back when it was still in development. I've watched lots of it, and I'm like, all right.
My favorite thing is seeing people who, I know otherwise from various, interactions. They get into Resident Evil 7, and they will not even open a door in front of them because they're so terrified about what's beyond that door. And like, you'll watch somebody on a stream for a good minute bargaining with themselves whether or not they're going to open the door, which is incredible to me. It's really fun to watch people play. I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't have that reaction when I play horror VR games. Like, I'm just like, oh, well, there's probably something I have to do around that door, so I'll just go in there.
If you, obviously the situation going on right now might change that, but if you happen to have like another Halloween get together next time, and you want to, if you got some people that are especially sensitive to scary stuff, this game is like $7-8, and it's just a quick 15-minute run through. And there's like 4 different paths you can take. So it's kind of like, it's not randomized, but a certain path they can go down. But I will still forever remember my good old friend, the Preacher Plays, and him and putting his sister, and they were streaming it and playing this game, and just their reactions were just absolutely hilarious and just better than any.
What was the game?
Affected the manner.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and so we hope to see this update come to us as well. I would love a reason to jump back into this for sure.
I just love any game title with multiple colons in it. Affected, the manor, the Gauntlet. It's like Wraith, the Oblivion, Afterlife.
Afterlife.
Or like upward slash or something,
Way back when I was working on Time Splitters 4, that never ended up happening. We wanted to try and give it the most generic name possible, because at the time we found the idea of doing that hilarious. That every game at the time was like Stealth Ops : Black Sundown or whatever, and we were like, why don't we just call it like Project Eagle : Operation Stealth.
Project Eagle.
Just give it a head. But it never happened.
Love it. All right, AJ, what's our next news story, man?
All right, next news story. We've got everyone over at Arvory Immersive Interactive. They have given us, they've basically saying that they have a huge content update plan for Pixel Ripped 1995. Says, quote, "It looks like the Pixel Ripped universe just keeps getting bigger. We've got a super special content update coming later this month with a variety awesome new additions, including this sweet new comic book found in game." They've got a picture of a dot comic book that they have, but sounds like we're going to be getting some more stuff for Pixel Ripped, which Pixel Ripped 1995 is a pretty cool game. It's like you were talking about Inception earlier. This is like retro video game Inception, the VR game.
Yeah, I don't know if you've tried any of the Pixel Ripped stuff, but conceptually it's really interesting the way it's, it's like you're in a video game, playing a video game, where part of the video game is to keep you being able to play the video game, because your mom comes in and says, oh, you got to turn off the TV, and you have to like jockey outside influences. It's pretty interesting. I'm wondering
I'm currently stuck at that moment where you're in your bedroom and your mum keeps coming in.
Oh,
Love it.
well, so
That's
here's
my
the thing.
favorite level, the Castlevania level.
I'm
Here's
stuck because of it.
Well, you got to watch out because there's certain tiles that cause a noise in real life, and if you know where those tiles are, you can avoid them pretty well.
In real
And
life, he
most-
says. I love it.
Well, in real life,
In
the
real
game,
video
you know,
game life.
there's too many layers of this shit.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Rob,
it's a
have
lot
you
of fun.
found the trading card with my face on it yet?
In Pixel Ripped.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm right next to a Pringles can in the first level.
Just
Really?
like always, right next to a Pringles can.
Yeah, it's how Anna paid me for a good review. She's like, I'll put you in the game. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I wasn't special. It was like a ton of YouTubers. So
Wow.
Yeah, we didn't get in there, but it's still good.
Who the
Real
hell-
quick, before we move on to the next thing, we got 2 tips. Hit me, Dave.
Gotcha.
And that is Darth Vader with the $4.99 donation. Says, hey, everyone, got to go for now, but I hope you all have a great rest of the show. Thank you. Hope you have a great rest of the night.
Thank you,
Vader.
Darth. I feel like that's his entire paycheck. He just gave the whole thing to us. Thank you very much, man.
Well,
Him and Drew Grover, man, they've just been emptying
Uh,
out here.
Brian, you want this one?
I'll be
Take
happy
it.
to, but I wasn't prepared. So give me 2 seconds.
1, 2.
No, don't actually give me 2 seconds. Okay, there we go. Looks like we are looking at, this is David Moore. David Moore with the $4.99 donation saying, Rob, sometimes VR horror is more fun to put friends and family through.
Oh, yeah.
Not,
Then do it yourself, yeah.
yeah, and not yourself. I guess
100%. And by the way, just as a little anecdote, you think about being a baseball card in Pixel Rip. So in the game eSpire 1, which is like a stealth VR game,
We're very
um,
familiar with that Spire one, yeah.
the team who made that, I saw a very early demo of that, and I was like, this is so exciting that you guys are doing this. Little team in Australia, it was their first ever game. And the lead designer, creative director, Michael, was like, they're really into GoldenEye, loved the game and loved the team behind it. I was like, well, I can introduce you to all those guys. So I put them in touch with Dave Doak, for anybody who remembers the old game. Dave Doak was not only part of the core team that made GoldenEye, he was also a character in GoldenEye. He was the guy who had the key that got you out of the first level. And as a way of thanks, they asked Dave if he would play a small character in the game. So there's like a guy you need to get a key from, and like you have to go to his office. And so in the game of eSpire, Dave Doak's character's office is one of the levels, and it's filled with Dave's real like personal effects. So they scanned in a bunch of his like photos and his degree and some of his original level design layouts for GoldenEye. And as a way of thanking me for introducing them, they said, "Oh, do you want to have an office like that next door to his?" I said, "No. Here's what I would like." So I had a Glamour Photo. Do you guys know what a Glamour Photo is?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Pretty much.
Like a headshot
Yeah, yeah.
of me, like a beautiful black and white headshot of me, framed and put on his desk in his virtual office, signed by me, that says "Dream for the Stars," to my biggest fan, Rob Yescombe. So it looks like he is obsessed with me, and to this day he doesn't know that. Yeah. So if you happen to play Spy, you happen to go into that office, you'll find a black and white picture of me signed in his office.
That's
That-
hilarious.
Incredible.
I will have to look for that.
No, we've definitely played some Aspire 1.
Steve IRE says second level facility. David Doak was the scientist.
That's
Wow.
right. That's exactly right.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember it. When you said that name, it immediately sparked something in my brain. Like, that's
Yeah, Doak. Yeah, that's right.
the credits of GoldenEye, but I certainly played it. So
Well, it says his name too, because you have to you run into him and then you have to free all
Oh,
the
yeah.
scientists and
That's what I'm
you have to
saying,
get like as many minimize civilian casualties. That's wonderful.
I like this. I like this rhythm that we're in, where we talk about the news, and then Rob tells us a way more interesting story about something almost unrelated. And this is you just need to come back every week,
Yeah.
Rob. This is way more entertaining
Yeah.
than what we normally do.
We've been getting, you know,
Thank you.
I don't know if you have the chat up as well, Rob. But yeah, there's lots of love for you in the chat they were talking about earlier. So if you get the chance, go back and watch this video and look at some of the comments if you want. You know, if you need a confidence boost one day.
Ben Schroeder with the $2 donation says, "Happy Thursday, guys. Keep up the great work." And hit it again, David. Delirium Drew VR says with a $2 donation says, Rob, off the top of your head, favorite 3 to 5 VR games?
Good question.
Number one on that list, even though it's not something that I would normally be involved in, I think Onward was a huge benchmark because it said, hey, all the things that people were nervous about doing in VR, like smooth motion, like physical placement of props on the body, IK, like all of that stuff, they just said, screw it, we're just going to do it. And I think that was, when I was talking earlier about like staying on the fringes and doing the stuff that people are not comfortable doing yet. He went out and did it himself pretty much single-handedly. And I put hours and hours and hours into that. Second, I think, has got to be Sorrento VR, which...
That's so funny you say that, because when you described the first one, I was thinking of Sorrento in your description. I was thinking Sorrento.
Right. Like Sorrento was, again, very daring with locomotion to say, not only are we going to do a thing where you like leap in the air, but like, it's not for everybody, but like, I love doing side flips and back flips in VR where your brain is turning, but your body isn't. Love all that stuff. If you got the legs for it, really exciting. I mean, I'm somewhat biased, but I think Half-Life Alyx is pretty good. Okay, what else? Top 5. Let me think about this. Hang on.
Yeah, 2 more.
That's a tough one. I mean, Resident Evil 7's got to be up there because seeing something that polished, I think, is really important for people to understand what's possible. And just, I'm going to throw this one out the side.
Farpoint.
Well, I can't say Farpoint, can I? There was a game. This is never going to appear on PSVR, but it was like an experimental game in which your arms were motorbikes, and you could drive your arms. Like it was amazing.
Incredible.
Or like the first time that I ever flew in VR, I think was in a game called One Giant Leap. This is again like really early experimental stuff on Steam. One Giant Leap, you were on the moon and you had rockets for hands, you could fly around, a bit like on Richie's Plank Experience. Basically, anytime somebody does something new that isn't entirely sensible, I think is super important to keep doing that stuff.
Yeah, agreed. That's why that's kind of why we switched to VR, is a lot of us were kind of growing tired of this whole third person over the shoulder, cover-based shooter. No offense to those, they're great, but we got kind of just worn out on them a little bit. So now that's been one of the wonderful things about this wild, wild west of VR games is you get stuff that you just have never seen before, never played before, stuff where you never had controls like it before, new gameplay experiences. So
I got to call out, because this is like a list I feel like I could go on forever. The kinds of innovations that can happen in VR that are so different to the kinds of innovation that happen in flat games. For example, there's a game called The Chair in the Room, Greenwater.
Yes. Yep.
One of the strokes of design genius in that is that Ryan, who made that game, so the game takes place in a series of rooms, and every room is scaled to fit your play space.
I know what
and
you
you don't necessarily realize it the first time you play it, but you're like, wow, this is sort of uniquely easy game to move through. But it's because the game is designed to fit the exact space that you have in your house, and it never tells you. It's just part of the design. Genius.
That's awesome. Yeah, it reminds me kind of T for God. Did you know about T for God? It was a side quest title. You can play it, actually. You can side quest it if you've got the quest plan around. It's designed so that you can endlessly walk in a limited play space and experience this game, because it procedurally generates things that are like tailored to your play space, like you said. So you're moving forward in real space, but you could have like a 3-foot play space and still feel that you've walked through the entire game.
Right, elevators, ledges, everything.
There was another title that did that a while back, something Diplomacy. I can't remember what it was called.
That's one where is it sort of like there's like lasers and you crawl?
Yeah.
It's like I think I saw that.
Yeah, very impressive. I saw a demo just this week of like a homebrew engine that someone made, where it was all about tricks with portals to make you think you're in more space than you are. I think we're not far away from a point where, if you're operating in room scale, like I think teleporting is going to go away in a couple of years, and I think smooth movement is going to go away in a few years too. I think you're going to have a combination of visual tricks and portal tricks that allow you to just keep moving through the space that you have. Not there yet. I mean, it's a very complex bit of design to make that work, but the tech is there to do it. It's just a question of someone taking the initiative to give it a go.
For sure. All right, guys. I think. Yeah. Did you just hit that?
I did. Yeah. We got one VR Grid, another VR content creator out there. What's up, Ryan? He says, "I am loving the F out of this interview / guest appearance." Nice
VR too.
work, Jen.
Absolutely.
VR Grid is one of our buddies, fellow reviewer, VR reviewer. Been doing it since the go.
I mean,
definitely got a couple more.
He's your buddy. I don't know why you're putting me in a box with Ryan. Jesus.
I love you, Ryan.
We've also got Stupid Donkey with the $5 who says, "I demand Rob shows us his Glamour Photo." Well, you're going to have to play Espire 1 apparently. Because
it's in the game. You can see it right now. It's there. It's not.
I mean, he gave you a preview. He did a little headshot thing.
And to be clear, it's not a real photo. It's a framed photo in VR of me, of a photo on my phone that we then polish to look like a Glamour photo. So
one more from
we
Ben
have
Schroeder. Yep,
I missed. Sorry.
That is, I got you, Ben Schroeder. Congratulations on your Beat Saber Platinum with the $1.99 donation. Says, "Happy Thursday, guys. Keep up the great work." Thank you, sir. You keep up the great work as well.
Also, I don't know if I said this on last week's show. Maybe it didn't happen on last week's show, but I've completed 2 songs on Expert Plus.
Yes.
So, wow.
I'm finally catching up to you guys. Finally. All right.
I know you've played Beat Saber, Rob. You had to have.
I like Beat Saber very much. I'm definitely more in the box VR camp, but I like Beat Saber too.
Yeah.
Nice.
As I said at the beginning of the show, Rob is the final boss. He's the final boss in Box VR. Every morning you'll see him posting his high scores on Facebook.
That's great. All right, so moving on, guys. Crisis Brigade 2 finally gets a release date. I'm so excited. I know. Me too, man. July 14th, Sumo Labs Time Crisis inspired arcade shooter will be gracing us with its presence.
Yes. Having played this one, I can tell you it is definitely Crisis Brigade through and through. It is still hard as balls. You will die constantly trying to beat the very first stage, and you won't see the second stage for a long time. But it looks a lot better. They polished it up, and enemies move around now in certain ways, and it's just not as... it doesn't look as budget bin as the first one did, even though we all loved Crisis Brigade, the first one. It's got a level of polish to meet the gameplay's level of polish. But it is still hard as nails, so keep that in mind. You will get your ass kicked. And you have to duck a lot, of course. There is no crouch button. You just literally... you got to do that the entire time. So it's a workout, but it's a lot of fun. We've said always great things about Crisis Brigade, and that's a really cool dev studio. So keep an eye out for that one next week. I would suggest that. And it's got aim support, too, didn't you say?
Yep.
Yeah.
Aim support and move support. I imagine it'll have DualShock 4 as well.
Yeah.
But it should have multiplayer.
The first
too.
one did, and this one does as well.
Okay. Do they use the light bar for tracking?
They do.
Okay, cool. That's a good idea. I like that.
It actually works okay. I mean, I just like the idea of options. Let as many people be able to play the game as possible.
Yeah.
So Dave, the upgrade. I'm curious about the upgrade system. I didn't actually get to watch much of your stream. So in the first game you would shoot and you'd get it's like some semi-automatic or automatic machine guns or something for a limited time.
That still happens.
Same kind of thing.
Yeah. So the way it works is in between rounds you have a shop kind of on the left-hand side where you can say, okay, I've accumulated this much money from my playthroughs. Maybe I'll buy myself an extra life for this run. Or maybe I'll start out with a better weapon than I usually would start out with. And they're typically not permanent, although some of them are. You can upgrade permanently to a better pistol to load out with. But a lot of them are stuff like, hey, I really miffed it that last time. Let me try with 2 extra lives because I have enough money for that.
Nice.
So that's kind of how the upgrades and the shop system works.
Nice.
It's a good addition, I think, because even though the game is still really punishing, you can buy extra lives if you're having a tough time. So
I'm looking forward to it because Crisis Brigade 1 obviously patched in 3-player co-op like late in its life, long after they designed the first 3 stages. And so with this one having 3-player support from the get-go, I'm wondering if they sort of designed the spawn points a little bit better because they had that in mind.
So, yeah, so
fingers crossed on that one.
Yeah, the game overall, of course, is like a more polished, really good looking version of the first one. So
It is
um,
weird being like a SWAT team officer in this day and age. Like I was kind of like, hey, I don't know how much I want to be on the SWAT team right now. But otherwise, besides that, it's a great fun game. We got one more tip actually, real quick before we go to the next thing.
That's Nihilus Ryan, the Game Feline, with a $5 donation. Thank you so much. Originally wanted to hear everyone's take on Dance Collider, but now I just want to hear Rob tell industry insider stories for hours. Heart.
it's true.
Yeah, it's pretty much the case over here as well. Dance Collider's paling in comparison to whatever's coming out of Rob's mouth.
Yeah, I like Dance Collider. I still want to talk about
Yeah.
Dance.
Oh no, we're gonna get there.
I
sure.
have to say Dance Collider.
All right, so let's see here. Let me get my notes. All right, so Undead Citadel. Well, first of all, again, Crisis Brigade 2, July 14th. Cannot wait. Really looking forward to that. It's going to be awesome. So Undead Citadel devs, Dark Curry, they have been quiet for quite some time, but they have been poking their head in every now and then, giving us a little update on the game. We've been waiting for this game for a long time. And they basically showed off their new physics engine that's been revamped. Now, we saw the game a couple months ago, and it was the Alpha 1.1. But then, they actually said, hold up. We've actually revamped the physics and everything since this demonstration. And so they just showed us a cool little video of a dude kind of twirling around a scythe or like an axe or something, and then like knocking over a bookshelf. But, I just posted a video on sword fighting games, and this was on that list. And, I just really feel like physics are something that's currently being developed with VR, and that's just going to be huge moving forward in terms of like immersion. So really cool to see the progress on this one.
Yeah, it's always good to see, like, the first gen, even stuff like Skyrim, big games, you see that waggly combat where it's like, I've got a sword, but it has no weight to it. I can go like this
Right.
as much as I want, and the game will register hits whenever it feels like registering hits. We're starting to see stuff like, even Gorn, as silly as it is, there's a weight to every weapon, and there's a heft to it, and you have to swing it a certain way to get it to work. And that's how Until You Fall is, and Golem. And so I'm hoping that that's what we get in Undead Citadel too, because that's really the direction we need to be moving towards. Waggly sword combat is just really unsatisfying.
Yeah, I had the animated GIF here somewhere. I don't know what happened to it. It's not showing up on OBS for some reason. Maybe that's the problem, that it's a GIF and not a movie. But yeah, it does look pretty good. This is essentially why the game's not out yet. They were saying Q2 for quite a while, and then just kind of went silent and said, well, the reason it's not out is now because we decided to go back and redo the entire physics engine, which, like AJ said, based on the animated GIF that we saw, it's looking pretty good. And now they're saying Q3. I mean, it's a big fingers crossed thing. Like, I mean, I don't know what's happening behind the scenes there, but this video that's showing down the corner from the alpha stage, like a while back, looks like a finished game. Like unless this could just be a vertical slice, but I mean, this looks like they have their shit together. And if they had to kind of halt everything and rework the physics engine, and now kind of stitch everything up, I'm so excited for this game. This is certainly one of my most anticipated games, and I think because they were silent for so long, now they're actually giving a release window. I have confidence in them to release it in that window. We'll see what happens though.
Get out of here! It's hard!
That is a $20 donation from Joe Grover. Once again, send Joe Grover right over. Yeah. He says that pipe in Rob's view is pumping story ideas into his head. So that's yeah. That's in LA for, right?
That's where the magic's happening. Oh, that's wonderful. Thanks, Joe. So just a little bit more on this game. What were you going to say?
I'm just glad that tip came through when we still had that angle. That was perfect.
Perfect. Oh, man. So just a little bit more info on this game. It's got a story mode, and it says travel across a fantastic setting with over 10 levels and discover the origins of the plague. And it says solve puzzles to advance. There's a horde mode, survive the endless enemy hordes for as long as possible, reach the top of the different leaderboards. So it will have leaderboards. There's an armory, collect all the weapons. They said there's over 60 hand-to-hand combat weapons, including swords, axes, warhammers, maces, shields, two-handed weapons, etc. Bows, arrows, explosives for range attack.
Fancy.
Love it.
Over 60 weapons. That's crazy. They definitely put a lot of time into this combat.
Does it bother anyone? I mean, I think my only criticism of their description, I'm not going to criticize the game until I played it, but my only criticism of their description is that they're like over 10 levels. And I mean, this just doesn't look like a game that has levels. I'm not looking at this going, there's like a checkered flag at the end of it where you're like, okay, here's your load screen, here's your high score for the level. It just level feels like that to me. And so I don't know if that's just like a strange way of describing their own game, or if it will actually be like, okay, time to go to the next level. You know what I'm saying?
So speaking of old industry stories, I remember that it used to be the first question that a journalist would ask you when you were making a game was, how many guns are in the game? and really and truly, if it was below a certain number, that would be front page news, that it was controversial, that it was too low. It's a weird, and I think there's still some of like the antiquity of that comes through still in the language of how we talk about games, about how many levels does it have, how long is it. None of us really care about the answer to any of those things. The only metric there is it entertaining?
Right.
I agree. And it's kind of I don't know, like Iron Man reuses some levels, right? And 10 levels for VR games can be actually quite a lot, if depending on how long those levels are. Like we've seen from the gameplay where you're walking across this bridge, you're walking into this town, there's rooms, the main character's like, where the fuck is everybody? And he has like no idea, and he's like looking for brothels and stuff. Then he finds, depending on how well they play that out, those levels could be pretty long. It could be a good bit of content. But then, there's also the horde mode and stuff like that. So, and
that's exactly it, AJ. Is that it's like the stuff you're describing doesn't say level to me. It says, here's your first area, but if you're calling it a level, it immediately instinctually makes me go, at the end of the level, you're gonna see your score, and maybe I can go back and play that level again and beat that score. But again, that's just what it triggers in my mind, and it's probably nothing like that, although it totally could be.
Yeah, and I mean, you'll beat the first stage, and you'll say, okay, I got through Green Hill Zone, and then you go to the next. Free the animals, and you move on.
Excellent. Yeah. Let's grab this tip before we move on, real quick here. Don't mind me. I got to scroll down to Jordan Wood Gamer with the Australian $5 donation saying, when is The Walking Dead? When is The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners, the Meat Grinder update and budget cuts PSVR going to come out?
This month.
This month, July for Saints and Sinners, sometime this month, and then September 20-something for.
I'm looking that up right now. I can't remember.
September 20-something for budget cuts, because they added a whole new PlayStation VR level. It sounds like COVID really got the best of that development cycle, and so
25th,
2 days before my birthday. Woohoo!
And if you are a big fan of budget cuts, my friend, you can go to TheYetee.com/NeatCorp, Neat Corporation's developers, and or you can just go to my Twitter, which is a lot easier. And there is a budget cuts. There's some budget cuts merch if you want some budget cuts merch.
How are we supposed to be a fan if we haven't played the game yet? September can't come here fast enough.
Dude, there's a lot of hype for budget cuts, man.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool. I mean, they turn teleport locomotion into a mechanic instead of a hindrance, and it's pretty interesting the way that they use that limitation as an early VR game, to say, hey, like Rob, you were saying earlier, some people don't want to take risks, but I think there is a risk and a reward in taking something that seems like a limitation and turning it into an integral gameplay component, the way the budget cuts does, because I think that's really interesting how they pulled that off.
They took a completely opposite perspective to what we took on the Invisible Hours. So when that's not to say they did it wrong, it's just been a different take on it. When we were designing the Invisible Hours, there was much discussion about whether you should be written into the fiction of the story. Like, what are you that you can hop around the story and behave in this way? and be there but not seen, and rewind time and all that stuff. And there was talk saying, oh, well, maybe we should make you a character, and we say you have control of time. It's like, no. What we're trying to do here is create a format, because you can do an episode of Downton Abbey like this. You can do an episode of Grey's Anatomy like this. You can do, Knives Out like this. But if you make the functionality of the player part of the fiction, that fiction has to exist in all the other subsequent attempts to use the same format. So whereas Project Cuts are trying to do the opposite thing to make it feel more integral, we were trying to do the opposite to make it less integral, so that you could use the same system again and again.
Man, I would love to watch Knives Out this way.
I was about to say, if you have the designs to write a Knives Out VR experience, I think you ought to pitch that to those people over there.
Well, I mean, the Invisible Hours predates Knives Out by about a year.
Of course.
I think we
already did it better.
We already did it. I don't think we did it better necessarily, but it's definitely different.
You've trod that path already. I get you.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of us who did that project have a lot of love still. I still talk to the cast frequently. And, we wrapped on that in like 2017 or something, in 2016. We still talk all the time. We'd love to do another Murder Mystery, but it's a question of getting the audience to support something of that scale again.
Man. I've got all these. I'm just picturing everything you're talking about. I'm picturing every single form of movie and media and everything all presented the way the Invisible Hours presented it, and it just seems like it seems perfect for so many different stories. Man, I would love to see something else played out just like that.
I've read every Sherlock Holmes book twice, and that to me was such a nice surprise. I had no idea what Invisible Hours was. And so it was just amazing to watch that whole thing play out, especially like the main detective and just all the side characters, the supporting cast of that was just, oh my God, just each one was just crazy good, man. Crazy good. I still haven't gotten the secret ending though. I still haven't gotten the hotel room.
No, I haven't either.
I didn't want to get your help. You told me if I needed help, and I was like, no, like I have to do it on my own. And a year later, I still haven't done it.
Well, it's not easy. I'll give you that. It's definitely it's a hard thing to find organically.
Yeah, but eventually.
That's interesting to me when you talk about who are you as a character when you play the Invisible Hours or in a format of a game like that. It feels to me like you're a director of a movie who doesn't know what movie he's directing yet until he gets.
That's a good assessment. Yeah,
it's a very interesting concept because you do have agency as a player, obviously, but it's sort of you're just observing what happens, and that's a really interesting concept. And I would love to see you guys come back to that at some point for a different story.
Me too. I guess this is. I don't know if this is a spoiler, whether I can talk about it or not, but it's something that didn't happen, so I guess I can talk about it. That a couple of years ago, I was talking with Universal Studios about doing a sequel to John Carpenter's The Thing.
Oh, that's one of my favorite movies.
We were just talking about that recently.
We weren't able to find a way to do it, unfortunately.
Try it again. Please try it again.
Yeah.
I'd love to do that. It's also a very difficult thing because the rights again are held by multiple people. I think now
Sure.
Blumhouse are doing something with it in the movies, but
I just hope they get back to using practical effects, man. The CGI ruined the second one for me. The sequel, the prequel, I mean, that they released.
Talking about this, how they did practical effects in the movie and cut them out,
and they scrapped it. I don't know why.
Were we having this conversation earlier today?
No, we had it yesterday. We had it last night. We literally were talking about this last night.
Yeah, I thought so.
But the prequel movie to The Thing was actually really good, but the CGI was just such a backbreaker.
Yeah, and I mean, without the practical effects, you can't beat John Carpenter in his prime, man. He was a great director.
Next story on the agenda, AJ.
All right, so we got a quick one here for all you physical edition collectors out there. Space Channel 5, kind of funky news flash talking about Dreamcast games, is getting a limited run and goes on sale Friday, July 31st.
What was the price on that again?
Way too expensive is the answer.
Well, the digital game was 45 minutes long and cost $40, so $5,000 for this.
Yeah.
No, I actually I'm trying to get more info on it, but they don't actually say like what comes with it other than just a physical edition.
Physical
So there's
edition
not-
and a card is generally all you get from limited run. You get like one
Right.
trading card. The
Right.
problem is the Hatsune Miku stuff is not going to be included on this due to copyright stuff. So it's limited run games usually waits for all the DLC to be out there, so you can put it all on the disc, and then you can have like the final patched, updated game on disc. But that's just not happening due to copyright issues. And so this game was what, $40 you said at launch?
Yes.
It's just I just can't, man. I love what they gave us, but it just wasn't enough. This is an example where when Rob was like, "Oh, we don't care about how long games are," this is an example where 45 minutes was just not enough for the price that they charged. If this was a $15 game, we'd be having a much different conversation about it.
Yeah, $40 for 45-minute game. That's too much of a stretch.
And it's such a niche thing. I mean, if Space Channel 5 VR, I don't know if you've had a chance to play it. We were just talking Dreamcast stuff. But yeah, it is essentially a remake of the original Space Channel 5, subtracting some Michael Jackson from it. But it's just, like it's a 45-minute game for 40.
It's a really fun game. Really fun game. You used to have to press like up. It was like kind of Simon Says or Parappa the Rapper, where it was like up, down, or like press the X on time. But this one, being in VR, choo choo. This one being VR, you have the move controllers, and you like put your arms up in the air or put your arms out or punch, stuff like that physically. So it actually worked really well. I thought it was a lot of fun, but.
Yeah, I mean, as a nostalgia thing and as a game experience, it's well done. It's just know what you're getting and wait for a sale, probably. And if you're a big collector, I can see getting the physical, but if you're not, wait for a sale.
All right, so in other news, so there was a Steam listing that popped up and had some information that is a little bit alarming, and The Walking Dead Onslaught, which we know to be from Survios and to be a multiplayer, 4-player multiplayer game based on AMC's The Walking Dead IP, and follows the characters from the TV show. So this store updated and listed the game as no longer having multiplayer all of a sudden. So kind of alarming.
Can we go back to the past a little bit? This was 100% confirmed for multiplayer, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, everybody was saying
it was being marketed as a multiplayer game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because there was a lot of speculation about this, saying how are they going to make their game different than obviously the Skydance interactive one, and everyone was like, oh, it's going to be Survios is good at arcade games and they're good at multiplayer games, and so I just wanted to make sure we weren't like saying, oh, okay, well, we assumed it was going to be this and now it's not that. That's all I was just making sure of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it does drop without multiplayer, that's going to be kind of a huge blow to this game, because if you've already advertised something, obviously people want the thing that you told them they'd get. No Man's Sky is a big exercise in that, but I do think it'll still be decent because Survios hasn't really released a bad game yet. I mean, they've released some lackluster games. Battlewake just doesn't have the meat on the bones, but it's mechanically a fun game.
Very fun.
And it's play with a team and co-op and stuff, but without the multiplayer, I just don't know where this is going to land. If that's the case for real, that they've had to scrap that, and from what I've heard from some people who I will not name here, who might know some things, it sounds like maybe they've been having some trouble over there with this game, and perhaps that AMC has seen the success of Saints and Sinners and said to them, hey guys, you might need to step up what you're working on here. And if that maybe requires beefing up the single player and getting rid of the multiplayer, that could be the direction they're going in. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see, really.
I guess so. Rob, have you had any experience with Saints and Sinners?
I haven't, because I'm stuck on the quest. So I keep watching it. I'm like, I can't wait to get into this. But
yeah, later this year, man, you'll finally have access to it.
Yeah.
Right on.
What do we have to do to get you a PSVR, man? What do we got to do?
He's got one. It sounds like, just not there.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it's across the other side of the Atlantic. So
Oh.
we're there.
Well, maybe we can.
You don't need to send me anything. Don't you worry. Your consistent praise is plenty for me.
Yeah, Saints and Sinners is fantastic. We actually both Brian and I gave it like a 10 out of 10 in terms of just the physics, everything. The only thing I could think that could maybe be slightly better is if maybe you wrote the story for it. It would be crazy. The story was very good in it, though. The story was very good. But yeah, this game, I think the last dying leg that this game would have if they ripped out the multiplayer would be that it's based on the TV show characters, and maybe that would make it popular enough to.
They'll sell copies regardless of what the fuck the game is. Honestly, you put Daryl Dixon on the cover of this with the crossbow, everybody and their mom with a VR headset is going to buy the game, but we just don't know what it is yet. So
yeah. We're supposed to find out some more gameplay by the summer, but if that's true, that's unfortunate. But we shall see.
Right. The other possibility, right, is that it could just be a listing error, and they haven't corrected it. We'll see what happens.
From what we've heard, yeah, that's usually accurate, but we'll definitely see what happens here. I mean, to Dave's point, I've played a Walking Dead game in the arcade that was just a crossbow, just Daryl's crossbow, and I was like, this is amazing. So those characters can go a long way. You'd be surprised.
And what we heard from Skydance was that the biggest complaint that they got from a lot of people was like, where's Rick? Where's Joan? It's like, well, we got the comic book license and we don't have the same characters. It's like in a side story in the same world. And it does a great job at doing that. And I kind of just hope that with those heavy hitters, the big name characters, that they can actually bring something that does justice to the franchise that, birthed those characters. And we'll see. Servius hasn't really done a narrative game or character development game or anything like that. It's very arcadey. Everything's arcadey.
Right.
Yeah. Nightmare Creature says, isn't Onslaught a VR Left 4 Dead? It's sort of, but if this does end up losing the multiplayer, we do have Vertigo Games making After the Fall, which looks awesome. Yes. So I'm really looking forward to that one, and I'm hoping that one will actually be more like our Left 4 Dead in VR that we're hoping for.
And just for anyone watching the trailer here, I'm not sure if anyone noticed at the end of the trailer I'm showing, it has a release date of fall 2019.
Oh, God.
Yeah, and it doesn't look like they're going to make fall 2020 either.
No, but we will get gameplay. All right, so 2 more news stories, and we're going to get into Dance Collider. Job Simulator has added subtitles for English, French, German, Spanish, Korean, Japanese, and they said even binary. I don't know if that's a joke or not. I imagine it is. If they actually put binary subtitles in Job Simulator, that'd be fantastic.
I'm sorry.
They did. I think that's real.
I'm sorry. I identify as non-binary, and I would like them to implement that into the game, please. I hope somebody laughed at that. Jesus Christ.
Alchemy Labs is killing it with this accessibility stuff, though. They have this huge update coming in the summer. They said things like that you'll be able to play Vacation Simulator one-handed, perhaps maybe, vision impaired. I just really want to put an emphasis on that. I think accessibility options are really, really important. And it's just, I just want to give them some credit and some love for doing that. And Job Simulator is a fantastic game. I really thought I wasn't going to like it. I took a long time to play it. I was like, oh, this is very tech demo-ish. No, I was wrong. The writing in it, the sense of humor in Job Simulator is really clever and really funny. It almost took me back to like this Bill Murray style comedy, just like dry, but I don't know, very inspired.
Let me guess. The only way it could have been better is if Rob Yescombe wrote it.
We're going to start rolling our eyes every time you praise Rob again.
Start? I've been doing it for the last hour and a half.
I know. I'm sorry. I like his writing, okay?
I welcome it. We will be married in the spring.
Yes. I really love Farpoint, man, and Invisible Hours story.
It's very telling.
I will say
already.
I wanted to. The one thing I didn't point out about the stories in those games is those are the only stories in VR games that are immersive. I think you can say, oh, the features are immersive, the graphics are immersive, the sound is immersive, but these are the two that stand out to me the most, where the story was immersive, and it like sucked me in. And I meant to say that earlier, and I just forgot.
He's going to send you a detailed list of all his praises at the end of this. And every time you forgot,
You're very kind. You're very kind.
So what were we just talking about? I definitely had something to say about it.
Job Simulator and Vacation Simulator.
So there's a reason I think Job Sim is still in the top 10 best-selling games every month on PSVR. Even though Vacation Sim came out and it's technically more expanded, a better version of the same game, because there's something just intrinsically, if you've never tried VR before, Job Simulator is such a fun introduction and such a good way to get into it. And it's an art style that works really well. Like you said, the humor is very good. So Job Sim is a perennial, I think. I don't think it'll ever get old, per se.
Well, and it does the greatest thing that you can possibly do in VR games, and that's pick things up and throw them.
Yeah.
Like storytelling is great, but you get to pick things up, throw them, and there's consequences as well. That is great. Sometimes you pick something up and throw it, and it breaks, and it's like, that was uneventful. But this game rewards you for experimenting, and I love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah. So let's see. We also have finally. There was this is the last news story of the day.
Thank you for laughing, Orseek. Thank you for laughing. I'm glad somebody laughed at that joke a long time ago. Yeah.
So actually, real quick, we got a tip.
God, this is interesting. This comes from David Moore with $2 tip, and he says, Rob, have you platinumed Invisible Hours, your own game? How did you play it?
That is a good question.
I would say I probably platinumed the Invisible Hours like 50 times.
Probably right. Like,
yeah,
it's a good point.
Every inch of that game, I've been right down into the sawdust with it.
Nice.
Very nice. Speaking of which, that's a pile on the praise, but this is a different kind of praise that I'm going to give you. God. I remember back in the day when this game came out, you hopped in, you were watching me stream, and you hung out for hours, like commenting on my interactions with the game. And you talk about being in the sawdust a lot, and I think that really shows that you care about what you're making and that you want to see how people react to it. And I really that made an impression on me that this guy who wrote the game is actually here spending time seeing how I react to it, because that's part of the process. I have to imagine, like seeing that sort of first impression to what you've created. It's always cool to see creators come in and be part of that discussion. So I really appreciate that.
That means a lot. I think that there's, part of that is vanity. It's always exciting to see someone doing something that you did. But I think in a way that perhaps goes back to the days of being in fine art, is that a piece of art, how irrespective of how much of work of art you consider it to be or not, is a collaboration between the artist and the person who looks at it, because your interpretation of it and your experience of it is as valuable as my intention of it. And so that's the thing that really meant a great deal to me, is watching you and other people subsequently play through it and understand it in a way that I didn't understand it when I made it. And that allows me to think, okay, what can I do the next time that might be better or different or more?
I think it's interesting that you brought up Rothko before, because I feel like that's very on point for what you just described, because the art itself of Rothko is just big colors. You know what I mean? Some people will say, this guy is so lazy, he has no creative, genius, because he's just painting big colors on a canvas. But there is something about the interaction between the viewer and the canvas that, even though it's just a two colors painted, you feel something from it. And
there's a story
value to the art itself until somebody looks at it. So
there's a story I'm reminded of. Ooh, that siren going to be loud? It is going to be loud.
Siren's on Rob's end.
Wow, it's always on my end. Thank God it's not mine.
This one we've collected.
You saying that reminded me. There's a story about Picasso where he was an exhibition, I think, in Spain, and somebody came in off the street to the exhibition and said, "Well, my 5-year-old son could do that." And Picasso said, "Yes, but why?" And I think that's the thing, is that it's one of the things that I think people struggle with, is the delineation between art and craft, both of which are very important. To photorealistically draw somebody shows incredible craft. It may show art. I think that's hard to quantify. But there's a difference between the skill it takes to execute something and what we would call, again, the same art tutor who's still ringing in my ears. He said that art fills a God-shaped hole. You don't know what shape it is, but you know when it's filled.
Might be shaped like
Between art and craft, and that's what Rothko does so well, is that you feel the God-shaped hole is filled, but you can't describe the shape of the hole.
Yeah.
There was a back when I was in school, art school as well, up in Salem on the North Shore. This is when I was playing guitar more than ever. I was, we were making the coffee house rounds. There's a group of singer songwriters. We would never see each other except for these coffee houses. And I remember one of these guys, the best by far of all the coffee house performers. He got up, he's playing his guitar, amazing folk rock singer songwriter, and he was playing a song I hadn't heard of before. And I was sitting next to his friend, and I said, "Is this song about me?" And he said, "No, but it's funny you say that because you're the 10th person to ask me that question." Every person that heard this song for the first time said, "Is this song about me?" And how can one song resonate with 10 people that way for everybody to go, "This song's about me"? And I think that writing and connecting with your audience in that way is so magical that it's like sending a personal message, even if you've never met that person in your life. So.
Yeah, I mean, I was very lucky to be able to watch so many people play the Invisible Hours, and still do. Occasionally I'll still check in and see if someone's streaming it just to see if there's where I can finesse their experience.
Very nice.
Yeah, you may have created a long-running joke that we will live with here about God-shaped holes on our channel.
Yeah.
Starting to
You'll use it well.
I love it. Inside jokes are the greatest thing and the worst thing about this channel. It means that people who just joined us have no idea what we're talking about, but it means that everyone else is having a blast all the time.
That comes from Joe Grover, the effing GameCat, with a $5 donation. Says, "Don't know if I missed you mentioning it, but Paper Beast now has a demo in the PS Store." Yes, we did.
Was that last week?
Yes, we did mention Paper Beast last week. The full game is actually on sale as well.
Speaking
Rob,
of art in video games, Rob, did you have Paper Beast at all? Like, did you have a chance to play with that? It's from Eric Chahi, the guy who made Another World. And,
Sorry, what was the question?
Oh, so there's a game called Paper Beast that's come out recently. It's a PSVR exclusive for now. I think it's coming to PC later, but it's by Eric Chahi, the guy who made Another World. And in terms of video games as art, I think this is a worthy topic of discussion. So I was just curious if you tried it out.
I haven't played it, but I do have a great admiration for Eric's work, for sure.
All right, you guys, probably time to move on. Job Sim was supposed to be a quick news story. It's been running for like 30 minutes in the corner.
So the final news story before we get on to Dance Collider is there is a survey about Resident Evil 8 that has popped up from Capcom themselves. And, really just want to take a moment to thank every single person, which is a lot of people, who got behind us when we said, guys, please go to this survey and make sure, even though PSVR is rumored for Resident Evil 8, please let's show them how much demand there is for VR support. And my Twitter exploded, my YouTube thing that I put on there exploded, our Discord exploded, Reddit's exploding now. And so really just want to thank everybody. But if you haven't yet, please make sure you go follow the link that's in our Discord, on my Twitter, on my YouTube, on the community section, on Reddit. Polish Paul's got a video on it. And just go there and fill out, one of the most things that would make you want this game more or whatever would be PSVR support, because we want Resident Evil 8 in VR.
Absolutely. And this is not an option that's on the survey proper.
No.
You have to write in. You have to say, I would like, you click other, and you say, VR support, please. But I think they already know we want it, but tell them.
We're constantly fighting the uphill battle for VR attention with PlayStation. So but again, just want to thank everybody who's supported us in that.
Yeah. All right, that takes us to the game of the week, doesn't it? The actual game that came out this week. The only game
holy
that came
crap.
out.
We're there.
We're there.
We
All
are
right.
there.
So it's time to
It's
talk
a game
about
called
Dance Collider.
Dance. Yes, Dance Collider.
Okay.
This is an interesting rhythm game to me because it does a lot more than it needs to as a rhythm game. There is a backstory about how you're in this cyberpunk world, dystopian future where music and all art has been outlawed. But someone broadcasts a 50-second, some hacker somewhere broadcasts a 50-second piece of music called the Collider. And then everybody in the world hears it and starts forming these underground dance clubs where they battle each other in dances. And apparently every piece of music in this world is a remix of that original 50-second clip of music. So this is all to say that they didn't need to write this backstory. They didn't need to present it this way. But it's pretty well done, and it's delivered in a series of like duels. Like each character that you go up against has their own set of music in a certain genre. So this guy's the dubstep guy, he's the fire guy. This lady is poppy EBM, and so forth. And there's actually a progression towards like a boss battle, which is once again totally unnecessary, but really awesome to put this level of effort into crafting the little details around the edges of this rhythm game. But AJ, what is the game itself like? You've played it.
So it is like at its core one of these rhythm games where there's a bunch of stuff coming at you, and you basically have to like either catch these notes or you actually get more points if you punch them. But it's a mix between a VR rhythm game and VR fitness game. And by the way, the when you were reading the story behind the whole cyberpunk story behind this game is just absolutely amazing. It's like the best, most ridiculous thing ever, and it's like the best story I've ever heard for a rhythm game.
The only way it could have been better.
VR had.
I agree. Actually, this one may give Rob a run for his money. Honestly, this one may give him a run for his money. But anyways. There's different notes. It's similar to like what Airtone was, which I've talked about before. But yeah, there's like Dave said, there's different kind. It's all made by one artist. All the music. There's 45 tracks, and it's all by F777 is the name of the band or the artist, I should say. Yeah, and yeah, it's got this. It's weird because it's not just like you play the level and you hit the notes. They do set it up like this whole thing going on, where first of all they put you out on this platform, and that's one of my favorite things about this is that like it feels really cool to be on this platform and you look down and there's just like a huge drop off. So you do feel kind of like isolated in this battle. They've got the character selection screen, and each character has like a set of different songs to do. And
Street
yeah, the main menu looks like Street Fighter, which I absolutely love. But yeah, this game, once I turned it to pro difficulty, I really started enjoying it. I really like how it does this mix of like, just the dance moves. I think making a mix between a game where the mapping makes you dance and stuff like that is really awesome. That's one of my favorite things about Beat Saber, is the dancing of it that it makes you do while playing this game. And when this game does that, it does it really well.
It encourages you to dance because they're motion captured. So you're dueling people, right? You're up against a certain character, and they have a certain dance style. There's a Brazilian woman who's she does capoeira. And like, there's all these different. It's almost like Street Fighter, like different nationalities. Like this is the Guile, this is the American dude, this is the Chun-Li lady, and the music sort of fits that. But it's cool because they have motion captured dances for all these songs that go along with the mapping. So like, if you played it enough, you could mimic what the character is doing. But it's really immersive to see somebody in front of you dancing out, and it kind of encourages you to dance. Because you see a giant person in front of you dancing, and you're like, okay, these are the moves. Let's try it like that. So pretty cool concept. I like it. Brian, have you tried this yet?
I have, and I've spent some time with it. I don't want to come down on any kind of judgment or anything, because I've only spent like an hour with it at this point. And I enjoy what it's doing, but there's just a lot of things that I'm wondering if will become a bigger problem or less of a problem as I play it more. One of the things I'm finding, or one of the things that seemed to happen right away, was I was like, I'm hitting these notes or making these moves, and it didn't feel like it was totally on rhythm with the song I was hearing.
That is a complaint. I had that sometimes too. It didn't
Sometimes
always
they're a
feel
little-
100%
right.
like you were doing like a Beat Saber style, like it's on the beat every time.
Right. And so one of the things at first I looked down, I was like, oh, I'm not standing right where they want me to stand. So I took a step forward and really got on those footprints. And then it seemed like it was better, but it was still, there were points where it seemed like it was slowly going off rhythm and then slowly coming back on rhythm. And I was like, is this intentional? Because this doesn't feel good. Like Beat Saber, it constantly feels like you're playing an instrument or you're playing the drums or something. And this is like, I think it's testing me going, can we be playing a song and make Brian go against the beat? And I was like, this is, I don't want this in a rhythm game. But it didn't happen all the time. It was just occasionally.
I did have the same thought a few times. So
Me as well.
you're right about that.
It's a game design thing. Most of it, there were times where like I'd count it in my head and I'd be like kind of being like bam, 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 and it would be going to the beat. And especially, that's what I mean. Like, my favorite part was like when you'd hit the targets or whatever, and then it'd make you like cross your arms.
Yeah.
Whenever it does that, it seemed like it was perfectly in rhythm.
Felt really good.
You can also. Yeah, you can also string up combos. The other thing about this game is you don't necessarily need a lot of space, but you need to be able to have some distance from your TV, because I think at least 7-8 feet back is needed, because there's a lot of stuff where it requires you to hit up really high, and there's a lot of stuff that requires you to get like low. And I don't mean just like reach down low. I mean like I was squatting and doing stuff and then immediately jumping up.
And that's the rhythm game part of it too, because like it does require you to do moves that you wouldn't expect in a game like this sometimes, and also it gives you more points for punching harder on those notes that come up that are individual notes. So it does have a bit of a Box VR DNA in there, just because it's more fitnessy than Beat Saber on its surface, I think, just due to the fact that it wants you to exert physical power and it rates you on how much you do that. And I wonder if sometimes that's why the rhythm gets off, because like a typical rhythm game isn't really designed around you going like, you know what I mean? So if you're designing a map for a game like that, it might be a little bit off the rhythm in terms of what you expect from a Dance Dance Revolution, where you just put your foot on the thing at the right time and that's how it goes. I think it's a pretty solid game. I think the production value and the care that they put into the package itself, like the game stuff, not just, okay, is this a fun rhythm game, but like you can tell that these people were really thoughtful about the presentation of everything. And I think that goes a long way. That sold me initially. I was like blown away that they even had a backstory and that it seemed decent, like it's pretty good. And it's $50 with 45 songs.
Is it $15?
Have we decided it's $15? I think it's about $15.
It was either 15 or it was 16. Maybe you can look it up real quick. But hit me real quick, Dave.
This is my dream place. This is my dream world.
That is Nerfenstein, aka Girly Gamer, with the 2 Australian donation. Says just because I missed y'all. What's up, Nerf?
We missed you too, Nerf.
Thank you for joining in for sure. But look, so this game I streamed it last night at it was like late midnight. Sorry about that to everybody. I forgot it was out in Australia.
$20.
It's
$20.
I still think it's okay for $20. Honestly, I still think it's okay.
Content wise, it's okay. The thing is about the presentation, I think, is a lot cooler. Like when you jump in, there is a pro patch on this. The presentation for some levels was cool, but most of them I was like, all right, it's pretty simple looking.
And the big characters in the background, to me, they looked really flat. They didn't, there was a thing with that Thumper did, where you're coming over a hill and a big boss character would come up and tower over you. And these characters were just as big as those, but felt very flat. And I was like, oh, okay, this doesn't. I mean, I don't want to be like, it doesn't feel VR, but it didn't seem like there was any depth to those big, gigantic opponents.
There's a lot more going on directly in front of your face in a game like this than Thumper. And so I think that having so much focus on what the background character is, that, oh, I'm so immersed in this guy dancing behind me, like it's not useful to the game because you want to keep a focus on what's directly flying at your face that you have to deal with.
Yeah. It was just part of the presentation. It brought me back to Audica a little bit, where I was like, the gameplay is fun, but it's not. The presentation wasn't selling me.
But here's the thing: compared to Audica, this game is leaps and bounds ahead of Audica in terms of the presentation. Like the backgrounds have some vibrancy to them. Things change. Things happen in the background as you progress through a song, and also the way that the notes come in. I've always loved this about Hatsune Miku games on flat screen. The way that the notes come in is just like from nowhere. There's just like X comes from the left side, flies in, and you have to hit X. Circle comes in from over here, and you're like, oh shit, there's a circle. That's how this game works, because it will have moments where there's like a cyclone of notes spinning in the background, and they sort of slowly come towards you. And that sort of presentation stuff, I think, puts it way above an Audica or something like that, because they actually put some care into how it looks and how it feels when you're playing, so it's not so stagnant in the background.
I agree. I actually agree with you here. It isn't the most flashy presentation, but there is a lot going on, which is strange. But really, this game too. What I was going to say too was I usually play rhythm games with the music all the way up, and I was kind of ragging on the music a little bit last night. And one thing I realized that I actually had my headphones turned down. And that's not usually how I like to play rhythm games. So I wasn't giving really the music a fair chance. After playing more, especially after getting to the boss, Uriel, and his music is like straight up out of Mortal Kombat. And I'm like sitting there playing, and I'm singing in my head like Kano, Johnny Cage, like that KMFDM thing going on. Yeah.
Eyes at you, and he's like this weird AI.
His
like constantly talking like computer
his level
speak.
I couldn't understand a damn word he was saying, but his level looked like the album cover of 10,000 Days from Tool. It's like purple background with a face and like a bunch of eyeballs and stuff. But this game really grew on me, and I played it more before the Gamescast. Brian and I were talking, and I was really enjoying the music a lot more, blasting it in my headphones like I usually do, and just playing with myself without having to try to hear, chat going on and stuff, the speech to chat. And it was really starting to grow on me. I started liking it a lot more.
Yeah, and I want to go back really quickly to just the concept that different characters have different genres of music assigned to them. And AJ, what you seem to figure out is that there's certain things you like better than other things, and this game gives you an option to say, hey, this is the opponent that I want to fight against, because that's my style of music that I enjoy. And so when you hit Uriel, I was like, he's going to like this. And as soon as you hit that boss stage, your appreciation of the game changed. And so I think even though it's all one guy who did these 45 songs, there's enough variation, and they're grouped in a certain way where you think, okay, well, now I've found the pocket of this game that I'm really into. Right. And I like it.
There's a couple, too. There's a couple. As you get, for each enemy or opponent that you fight, the harder the songs get, which is usually like around the last couple songs you have for them, are really, really good. It's, me who likes heavy stuff. I like heavy music. All the songs get a lot heavier towards the end, which I really like. Rob, you like Box VR. This is more the way this plays and feels. This is less of a workout app like Box VR is. I think that's a really cool, fun, clever way to exercise, but I think that's all about the exercise there.
For sure.
Yeah, this is similar, but this is a lot more like game in mind, and that's one thing I really liked about it. I've always liked my exercise and stuff in VR to be a game that I just play the crap out of for a long time, and just secretly get exercise.
It's interesting because I like Beat Saber. I only enjoy as a game and don't enjoy as. Oh, what is that? Who is that?
That is Carlos.
I just let him inside. He was meowing at me.
Does he even know what's happening to him right now? He just looks completely oblivious.
Yeah, he doesn't know he's on camera in front of a bunch of people.
Carlos is always just hanging out.
Yeah, he's just like, what's going on here?
Carlos isn't the superstar that Tornado's going to be.
And he's a very particular type of cat that looks more at home upright in a biped than
Well, what I've been telling AJ is he needs to get a cat now because Brian's got one on the way, and I've got Carlos here. So
I got
really,
my dog
to round out the
corner.
cat community.
When you say you have a cat on the way, it does sound like you're going to give birth to the cat.
No, so
Yeah,
yeah, Jeremy and I are actually taking a road trip to Connecticut. It's gonna be like a 4-hour round trip, so that I can go pick up my cat that I adopted, kitten. I'm terrified. Excuse me.
So, Rob, you were saying
hairball.
we were comparing Box VR and to this and saying that this was more of like a rhythm game. What were you saying about if you can remember
I like Beat Saber, but it's weird. I've never think of it as a fitness game. To me, I think my brain needs the context of fitness to get me all the way.
Well, I have to ask you in the context. Have you tried playing on Expert or Expert Plus, or are you still kind of hanging around normal hard?
I'm still loitering in the nether regions. I get that.
When I see what people are doing on Expert Plus, that is certainly a workout. But it is, unlike some games, it's not as much. Box VR has the squats. It's designed to be a workout instead of just happening to be.
There's an odd callback to story here, because one of the things that we discussed a lot in Half-Life Alyx was how much of the actions that the character had to perform should be something that the player has to perform.
Right.
Describe the emotive state of a character who is a disembodied voice that you're hearing. And I think that's the thing. I think way at the back of the top of this discussion, we were talking about Crisis 2, AJ. I think you were saying you love the single player, multiplayer like too, but I've always sucked at multiplayer games, and the reason why I suck at them is because I'm constantly trying to recreate a single player experience. I want to have the ebbs and flows and the dramatic flair and the failures and successes of a single player game that you just can't really get if you're playing competitive multiplayer. And I think that getting the player to perform the role in VR improves their experience so massively. And sometimes that's something that you really work hard to get into the core design of stuff. And sometimes it's something that just some players do innately. And I think that's the thing for me with fitness games is I'm dumb enough that I need the context of fitness to behave in a way that I get the best workout from it. I think that's the difference for me with something like Box VR versus Beat Saber. Not that the physical action couldn't get your heart rate going, but my mind needs to know that I'm exercising.
Yeah. I'm the opposite. I need to be like I'm playing a game. like I can't play Box VR because I'm like, this is a freaking workout app. And I can play Sprint Vector, I can play Beat Saber, I can play this game because I'm like, I'm having fun. I'm not getting an exercise here. And then I woke up this morning and I was like, oh my God, I can't move. And I was like, wait, did I get exercise? I guess I did. I have to Trojan horse exercise through to myself.
That's sort of the difference between like trying to get a workout at home and going to the gym. It's like you have this dedicated mindset where you're like, I'm going to the gym now and I'm going to go work out and that is what I'm going to go do. But no, I will say that I think Beat Saber has given me the best cardio that I've had in a very long time. I mean, especially when I plug away at a certain song or a certain group of songs for hours after hours. By the end, you're just like, I can't even focus anymore. It's crazy.
One thing I want to say real quick, that concept of recreating a single-player game in a multiplayer game, I just want to pitch this to you. Have you seen the movie Battle Royale, Rob? The original Japanese one?
Sure. I mean, I think definitely the experience of the dramatic tension that you get in something like Fortnite or PUBG, so I think we've got closer to that these days.
What I'd like to see one day, and I want you to write it, as AJ would say. It is a battle royale game that is a single player game where you're a random character every time you start, and part of the whether or not you get shot is, did I flirt with this girl's boyfriend? Like, did I do something in this high school environment that made this person not like me that much? So it's about interpersonal dynamics as much as it is about shooting people. And no one has thought of that. I don't know why anyone's done it, but a single player battle royale would be incredible. Somebody should do that. That's all I got to say. We have a tip, actually, I should talk about.
Get the fuck out of here. Fuck you.
Who's that, Brian?
That is Scott Jessica with the 20 quid donation saying, PSN Harry fella on my break. Working nights. Just wanted to say thanks to AJ for accepting my friend request. Just need Dave, then I'll have all my favorite YouTubers. Can't wait. He's collecting us. Can't wait to watch when I get home.
Gotta catch them all.
Without Parole.
Yeah, man. I take a little bit to get friend requests added. I go once I get a friend request, I go and I look at the trophies and just make sure they're not trying to add me to play Fortnite or something.
I need to make sure you're a real gamer. Did you play all those games on hard? Then I'll add you as a friend.
Yeah, I go through the trophy list.
What do you mean you don't have the Preda Platinum? Go fuck yourself. Sure, I won't be your friend.
Make sure that there's some VR games in there, so I don't get 100,000 Apex Legends or whatever it's called.
Scott adds hashtag PSVR Gamecat for life. We love you. Thank you so much.
Dave will get you too. Dave took like a month. Dave probably took like 3 months to just get me added on this PSN.
Oh, did I really? I feel so bad about that.
Yeah, you take a long time. You get there though. You get there, but you take a long time to add people.
It's true. I think we're descending typical chaos that we get to about 3 hours in here.
Yeah. It's going to be time to wrap it up. I think we've talked enough about Dance Collider. I'm not, again, I had some kind of slightly negative first impressions, but that's exactly what they were, first impressions. I want to spend a lot more time with this and see where it goes. I've only fought one boss battle, and I think, and I felt like that it was way too easy on the easiest level, and even the medium difficulty seemed a tad on the easy side. So I'm really going to spend some time on Pro and see where this game takes me.
It's worth noting.
I really wish it was $15. I don't know if that's a price. If there's something wrong with the price there could be a price error.
I mean, I think there's something wrong with the price, whether there's a price error or not. It feels much more like a $12 to $15 game to me. But I don't make games. I just play them.
I think this feels like a $20 game. I mean, the way it's built, at least. So I have to say, I didn't play this on PSVR, but I saw you play it on PSVR, AJ, and it looked like it was comparable as a port to the PC version. It looked pretty solid.
It's a crisp game. I
didn't notice any shortcomings just because it was a PSVR.
Well, it is missing some
dancing,
sort of creative mode, right?
If you like dancing and you like music like that, then yeah, I'd say it's a should we.
There's two modes that I think aren't in it yet. One of them is a custom mode where you actually create the dances in the background for one of these characters. Okay. I didn't mention earlier, they did all the motion cap with a Kinect. They didn't use the little balls. They used a Xbox Kinect to motion cap all these things.
Okay.
Which sometimes you can tell. But so in the PC version, you can do your own dances and map those and your own mappings. The other thing is there is a hardcore difficulty, or I think it's called extreme or something, a 4th level above Pro that already exists, but it was a recent update to PC, so I think we'll get it at some point, but it's just not there yet. So it doesn't have your Expert Plus yet. So some people might want to wait for a sale when it's got that included and stuff if you're really into rhythm games.
So it's missing some things for the port, and it's $5 more expensive, and I think that's where a lot of people's complaints are coming from right now. So we'll see. You guys are seeming to enjoy it more than me, so hopefully if I spend a little more time with it, then I'll be right there with you.
Yeah.
All right, you guys. Yeah, I think it's time to wrap this sucker up, don't you think?
We almost hit 3 full hours, as we always do.
My legs are numb.
We've suffered enough.
Let's let Rob talk about stuff for another hour, because I would just sit here and listen to him.
I would totally brew another pot of coffee and sit here and listen to Rob talk.
Yeah, let's do it.
Well, I've run out of all anecdotes now, so
that's it. We got them all.
It's not true.
We got them all. For anyone who didn't know, Rob has exactly 3 hours of anecdotes.
Well,
you guys, of course.
Life Alex. I have not heard enough about Alex. Can we end the show with one fun tidbit that you haven't told us yet about Half-Life Alex?
I like this.
Crikey. So I mean, I touched it for like 5 minutes, so I wasn't like a big part of it.
But they let you touch it, which is important.
They let me go.
Dave, I'll let you touch it.
I can tell you that
Brian. I know.
It ended up being really, really authored by 3 other writers there, Sean, Eric, and Jay. But in the early days of it, there was an idea that I wanted to do. We ended up trying, it just didn't work. Which was this like, sort of weird idea that the G-Man would hand business cards to characters, and on the business cards would be lines of dialogue that the characters didn't know they were going to say at some point in the future.
Oh wow!
And like a way for people to try and figure out what their fate was on the basis of the line of dialogue on this business card. It was a nice idea in isolation, but just didn't quite work in that product. So there's a little behind the scenes cutting room floor tidbit from Alex.
That's pretty clever, honestly. I kind of would have liked to see that. I haven't
It would
finished.
have been even clever if it had worked, but it didn't. So, well,
All right.
God,
Delirium
thanks.
Drew with the final tip
Yeah.
says the $2 donation says one more Rob story. Half-Life Alex OMG yes. And then the Macaulay Culkin face.
Rob, let us know where can people find you. You know, we know we've encouraged everybody to go out, play Invisible Hours and play Farpoint.
And Rhyme, if you feel like it.
And Rhyme if you got it. And where can people keep up with what you're doing these days, Rob?
Twitter is probably the best place. It's just at Rob Yescombe.
There you go.
So everybody go
make sure you follow him on there.
Rob Yescombe instead
Right
of
after you follow
AJ.
me,
I knew that was
right
coming.
after you follow me. Make sure you go follow Rob.
Awesome.
What
you
you
can
just
also-
revealed to me is that I've been saying it wrong the entire time, and you were so gracious as to not.
Oh, whoa. Wait, I missed it. How do you pronounce it? What do you say? Yes,
I would say
Not Yescombe.
yes.
I'm saying it
Yescombe.
very Americanly.
not quite on, it's just on.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
Yescombe. Yescombe. Rob Yescombe. That's how we say it here.
I would say 80% is as good as an A+ for me.
Shout out to Darth Vader with a $5 donation saying, I just returned. And of course, it's the end. LOL. Great show from what I saw.
The end.
This is the end. And make sure you go back and
Beautiful
watch everything you missed.
friend, the end.
Shout out to Danny Dreadhack with $2 donation. Which says game over.
That's
Game over, man. Game
Drew
over.
actually convinced him to buy a VR headset, as far as I know.
Wow.
And now he's
Okay.
in a party, which is
Okay,
awesome.
I'm gonna let Brian take us home before we cue the cat.
I do my
What,
absolute
did you
best.
work on something with aliens, Rob? Alien?
I'm going to let you do it, but then we're going to do this
Again, it
first.
was a 5-minute thing at the beginning of Alien Isolation. I was there for a few days just to
How come everybody
concept design.
these awesome games? They're like, Rob, come in here for 5 minutes. We just need you-
Yeah, that's all you need.
I mean, especially in the case of Alien Isolation, you know, I barely touched it. I was just there to sort of help.
They just want to have your blessing, just your hand of
Uh,
God,
also
your
sure.
God whole hand, touch it.
you gotta sprinkle a little bit of the.
Yeah, little Rob on it.
All right, you guys. I think that's going to do it for another episode of PSVR Gamescast Live. Thank you to everybody who hung out and watched. Thank you to everybody in the comments. Thank you to everybody who donated. We really appreciate each and every one of you. Make sure you go subscribe to Dave over at Dave Station VR. Make sure you subscribe to AJ at the Underground PSVR Underground. Make sure you follow Rob Yescombe on Twitter. And that's going to do it. We also want to thank each and every single one of you who sat back, didn't say a goddamn word. Because before, without Parole, I was one of you. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, AJ. Thank you, Rob. My name's Brian. And we're out.
Cue the cat, because I
Come
want to
hang
say,
out in the Discord. Come hang out in the Discord.
Yeah.
Yes, come
Come
out
to
in the Discord. Discord.
guys, fist bump to you, or seek the game cat, Nerfenstein, aka Girly Gamer. Good to see you again. Gamerchick13, Bearded Dan, hello. Nick Mulo, Darth Vader, Lord Vader, Danny Jethack, thank you for the donation. Genetic Blasphemy, hard to get. Secrets of, what's up, my dude? Nightmare Creature. Rob, you ever play Nightmare Creatures?
Not only did I play Nightmare Creatures, I was listening to the soundtrack yesterday.
Yes.
Really? Is that
AJ
soundtrack worth revisiting?
Rob, you are
Really, really great.
I need to go back.
definitely a different person in the world right now.
Yeah, you definitely are.
Rob, do you like Bloody
if
Roar?
only
Do you like Bloody Roar and Jet Moto?
If you like Bloody Roar and Jet Moto, there's some bromance going on here. I guarantee.
Wait, give it to me again. You said
Bloody Roar and Jet Moto. Bloody Roar and Jet Moto.
I remember Bloody Roar Jet Moto.
Yes.
Single track.
Super
He doesn't
obscure racing
remember
game.
it.
PS1.
It
Oh,
wasn't
man.
No, you're right. There was like 3 of them. It wasn't that obscure. All right.
Racing games. That was all about Roll Cage. That was.
Roll Cage was great. I'm still trying to get them. I'm still trying to harass them to bring that game to VR. They remade what's it called? It's not Grip, is it? No, it's they made a new Roll Cage. I don't remember what it's called though, but I'm trying to get them to bring it to PSVR. And they just keep mocking me like everyone would throw up.
Unbelievable. Take everything
all
so
right.
personally.
Andrew C. Silent Evil 999.
All right. Can we?
extending
Is
the-
that it?
Everyone's just staring at a black screen listening to us talk now. Can we say goodnight?
Good night.
Rob, can you tell the game cats good night?
Good
Oh.
night, cats. Sleep
You have-
well.
You got to
You have
meow
to
for
meow.
us.
You have to meow.
Meow.
After meow.
It's a customary thing. I'm sorry. everyone.
I'm going to do what my cat used to do, which is he would make the action of a meow and no noise would come out.
There you go.
Can't see you.
Only we saw that.
Only we saw it, but you guys get the impression.
It was there.
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys heard it. You heard it. Exactly.
Use your imagination.
That's Rob writing right there.
That's a genius of Rob's storytelling. Good night, everybody. We love you all.
Meow.